BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center, presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Well, hello there. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We're broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out here at the Centene Community Ice Center. We got an extra hour today, kind of. More like 45 minutes.
Nah, fine by me.
Appreciate you all tuning in. Normally, this is TMA. Appreciate you being a part of BK and Ferrario today as we are watching live as Canada now down 1-0. Binner just let up a goal to Finland. Finland up 1-0 with about 3 minutes to go in the first period of the semifinal matchup between Canada and Finland. You think he's going to get a lot of crap for that one?
Known Canadian market, yeah. Yeah, I'm not even sure I'd really blame him on that one. Lose the draw cleanly and give up a quick wrister. But, yeah, I think so. I think Dom's probably on Twitter already.
By the way, Bradford, TMA doesn't do beds during their segments. We can just go ahead and take that down. This is part of TMA show. The extra hour is theirs, not ours, as indicated by the clock. It is 10:10. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. If you guys would like to get involved in the show, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. To do so, you can always check us out on YouTube as well at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. So Cardinals back in action tomorrow. As you heard, the guys were down at Cardinal spring training all week long. They did a fantastic job getting a ton of interviews. You heard today from Victor Scott. You heard from JJ Wetherholt. Heard from Molina, even if not Yadier Molina. Heard from Benji, though, and that was great. Got an update on where they're at with their movie. You could check all of that out on the podcast page later on today. I'm curious, T-Bone, as you start thinking about what's at stake in spring training. Typically, we could look at this and say, all right, there's this job available. There's this spot in the rotation available. What are they going to do here in the bullpen? And you've got real, tangible competition as you go into camp. I'm struggling to find those spots right now. I think if you were to pinpoint one area, it's the back of the rotation. I think there's a couple of spots available for like 3 pitchers, and that's to start out the year because I think they're going to go to a 6-man, and so it's probably 3-ish guys for 2 spots. And then one of them gets sent down. He'll probably be back up at some point within the next 6 weeks or so to get a spot start or something, but I think that's really the only legitimate competition, especially if Lars Nootbaar is going to be on the injured list to start out the season. Is there anything else that you see right away?
Yeah, I think maybe there's a battle for that final spot on the bench because, like, right now you can kind of plan it out. It's probably Pajes as your backup catcher, assuming Herrera gets back to being able to throw and be able to catch, which I think he's going to based on where he's at on his timeline. So you got Pajes there. You're talking Sajasi potentially in left field if that's the case as your starting left fielder. And then it comes down to like Pozo, Fermin, Prito, Nelson Velasquez, I think is the non-roster invitee that's getting a little bit of buzz down in Jupiter as a guy that could potentially be a right-handed bat that they've been talking about all offseason long to add to their outfield mix. That's really about it. I think it's just really the bench is the one that you're really having a fight for, and that's just because of Nootbaar potentially being out because that automatically probably bumps the JC into the left field. Your DH spot is probably Pozo would be my guess. So I've still got a bunch of openings there behind Pedro Pajes.
I was about to say, even then, it's not really a competition. It's kind of like who's the next guy that can make this roster.
Yeah.
It's more of like handing a spot as a scholarship to somebody than it is a competition to earn a whole lot of playing time.
Downgrade earning a major league paycheck like that.
Probably Prieto. He probably gets that final spot. You put Lars Nootbaar on AL, and I would imagine you have like Pajes, Fermin, Church, and Cesar Prieto as your guys that are on the bench. I don't really see anybody else that's taking a commanding lead for that spot. Am I wrong?
I think the bench you could have maybe a surprise. Like Velasquez is one that I would circle as a non-roster invitee. Like I don't think these guys are just going to be gifted bench spots. I think they're going to force them to try and earn it through competition in spring training. Like
who?
Fermin, for example. Fermin is one that I would highlight. Like you said yesterday, he's got no options left. If they DFA'd Fermin because he got beat in training camp, I don't think they would care.
I'd be shocked.
Oh, I would.
Absolutely shocked if Jose Fermin is not on this roster.
I wouldn't be shocked at all because I don't think Fermin's a guy that you care whether or not he is or isn't on the roster.
I personally agree, but I mean, he's been here for how long now?
Yeah, under the old regime of John Mozeliak, Mrs. Heim, who I would give hopefully more credit to.
Also, Fermin was productive last year, man.
In the minors.
And at the majors. He hit 285 at the major league level, and 70 plate appearances, was 30% above league average. I've got no issues with that guy being a part of this roster.
I don't think that's sustainable for Jose Fermin.
I don't either, but I don't see anybody else that's cracking down the door.
My biggest point, though, I think it's open to a surprise of a non-roster invitee or even a minor leaguer that could take his spot. I don't think anybody on that bench is guaranteed, lock them in now, they belong on the opening day roster. And they honestly, they probably shouldn't be. So I think that is the one spot right now that is where there's competition outside the bullpen because they've got plenty of options on the 40-man roster that they can kind of use and manipulate to try and figure out what they want to do in the bullpen.
Do you care about any of that stuff, though? I'm not talking about the bullpen. Bullpen, whatever. Like it on the bench, does it really matter? Like whether it's for me, I'm arguing in favor of him being on the roster. I don't really care one way or the other. Yeah, it's like I think he will be. If I'm like trying to be right, if that's my stated goal, will he or won't he be on the roster? I would bet a significant sum of money that Jose Fermin will be on the opening day roster for the Cardinals. Will he remain there all season long? I'd probably bet against that. But on opening day, yeah, I'd be surprised if he's not. Do I care either way? No, I don't think it's a really meaningful thing one way or the other. And I would say the same thing is true for like Cesar Prieto versus any of the non-roster invitees. I do not care which direction that one goes. And I don't think it really matters because I don't think whoever that player is gets any meaningful at-bats for the Cardinals in the first month of the season. And then like, okay, Nathan Church is going to be one of your fourth outfielders until Lars Nootbaar's back. That's cool by me. It doesn't really sway me one way or the other. Do you care on who these guys are that are on the bench this season? Because it seems to me like so much of the oxygen is going to be filled up by the guys that are in your starting nine day to day.
Yeah, no, I don't care. I was arguing from just the first point of the question, which is where's the competition? And I was pretty adamant that it's on the bench. I don't care what the result ends up being for the bench because you're right. I mean, these guys probably aren't going to be playing except for the day where someone needs a day off. Like these are the guys that have to go sweat it out when it's 110 degrees on an afternoon game on Sunday when we get to the dog days of summer. But no, it doesn't really matter because what's going to matter to the Cardinals is when they get into the regular season, what their starting lineup guys are doing. Honestly, even the rotation competition I don't care about for two reasons. One, I think they're starting with a 6-man rotation. So basically just about everybody but one guy is not going to make it. Two, you're going to see all these guys probably at some point this year anyways because of injuries or maybe lack of performance. And three, how many of those guys are actually part of the plan moving forward? Out of these 7 guys that I've got listed in this battle, quote-unquote, for the rotation right now, McGreevy, May, Libby, Palante, Fitz, Dobbins, Leahy. Maybe one guy, 2 guys is a part of this moving forward. Most of these guys we're not going to be talking about by 2 or 3 years down the road because the Cardinals will say not a part of the plan and they move on from them or they become a bullpen option because they've decided not a starter for us in the rotation. So the theme of spring training about the competitions is I don't care. Just show me what the 26-man roster is and I'll start watching you in April.
Yeah. And it kind of feels that way, at least for me, because the games don't have the same importance in April as they have in previous years. Like last year, for example, I remember they had that series in Pittsburgh where it came down to basically Ryan Fernandez. He just blew a couple of games for them. And we kept having the conversation of why is Fernandez still here? This year, if the exact same thing happened, it doesn't really matter. And I would just be like, yeah, they're trying to develop a guy. That's fine. It's early in the season. He's trying to work through some things. The stakes aren't that high. But for last year's team, because we knew going in the stated goal was to make it to the playoffs, and we knew that the margins were going to be remarkably thin. They had to try to maximize every spot on the roster, and they had to try to get as much as they could from those respective players. So sticking with Ryan Fernandez as long as they did was catastrophic for their season. Sticking with Eric Fetty as long as they did might have ultimately led to them missing the playoffs. And when you combine those two decisions, they had significant impacts on where they could get to by the end of the year. This season, The goal is not to reach the postseason. I mean, it'd be nice. Don't get me wrong. If they end up sneaking in, I don't think anybody would argue against it. That'd be great. But that's not the number one North Star goal. The goal is to develop these young players. So if you get into April and you find out, all right, you know what? This Kyle Leahy thing, we tried it. It didn't work with him as a starter. We're going to push him back into the bullpen, which opens up a spot for both Fitz and Dobbins. That's fine by me. I've got no issues with that whatsoever. If you find out in early May, man, it's just not working out with Ivan Herrera behind the plate. And our pitchers are slipping accordingly because they're worried about the running game and he's not throwing anybody out. All right, move him out to the outfield. Let's see what he looks like out there. Or put him over to first base if you prefer and have Alec Burleson bump back out to the outfield or be at DH. Whatever the case may be, there's just not the same pressure or urgency to make any of these decisions as there has been in previous years. I don't feel like they have to get it right immediately. They can use the regular season as almost an extended spring training, which is a weird place to be in as a Cardinals fan, but I think that's ultimately where they find themselves.
Yeah, I agree. And last year their problem was just the confusing messages that they would give off. Like in theory, what they said last year about runway was right until you then had ownership say, well, you know, if we win early on, maybe we can sell tickets. Then, okay, wait a minute. Are we doing runway or are we trying to win? And then they would kind of yo-yo back and forth of, we are going to pinch hit for guys. No, guys, take these at-bats. No, we're going to pinch hit for guys again. So they yo-yoed back and forth. This year around, I'm with you. It basically the full season is going to feel like an extended spring training given opportunities. The bullpen, by the way, though, is one where I would say you still should, even if a guy is struggling, send him down and have him develop at AAA because you've got so many options that you can continue to churn through here at the big league level.
He's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. If you're new to us, it is BK and Ferrario. Alex Ferrario out today, out for the early portion of next week as well, getting some much-deserved vacation as the Olympic break continues. Appreciate you tuning in. You can always get involved in the show at 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line. We also have the YouTube chat available for you at youtube.com/101ESPN That is where Walrus King and Brian and Jeremy are all hanging out today. If you want to be a part of that, again, youtube.com/101ESPN is the place where you can go. We will have our usual Friday chat with our guy, Mike McKenna, the former NHL goalie, coming up at 12 o'clock. At 10:40, we'll talk about the ongoing issues that college football is having with NIL, the landscape that exists right now. A pretty significant, important individual was on a college football podcast yesterday talking about those issues. Wonder if that could lead to some fixes. We'll get into that coming up here in just about 15 minutes. But next, speaking of issues in the college landscape, Darryn Peterson is one of the best players in all of college basketball. He doesn't seem to want to play college basketball, though. Is this a sign of things to come, or is this a one-of-one situation? We'll talk about that next here on BK and Ferrario.
101 ESPN is your home for Blues hockey. Every month during the season, you can score a pair of tickets to a Blues game at Enterprise Center. A new winner is picked every month throughout the season. Enter to win now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app presented by Ted Cruz Frozen Custard. Broadcasting live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
One of the best players in college basketball doesn't really seem to want to play college basketball this year. His name is Darryn Peterson. If you're unfamiliar with him, he plays at Kansas occasionally when he wants to, and he seems to ask out of the game every 4 or 5 minutes. Most recently, Kansas was playing against Oklahoma State. He was playing really well. He ended up with 23 points in 18 minutes, which is kind of par for the course for him. He's done this a lot, where he's got against BYU 18 points in 20 minutes, against Baylor 26 points in 23 minutes, against TCU 32 points in 32 minutes. This is just what he does. He's an unbelievable scorer. He's not going to do much in terms of the assist game. That's not really the way that he plays. He has 3 in his last 6 games, just to give you an idea. But as a pure scorer, there's a reason why he's considered to be a potential number 1 overall pick, and that's it. But T-Bone, he's been dealing with, depending on what side of the story you believe, cramping/hamstring issues basically all year long. In the non-conference play, a lot of KU fans would explain it away by saying, yeah, it's fine. He's just figuring this stuff out now so that way he can be good to go by the time that we get to conference play, when it really starts to matter.
That would make sense.
He'll ramp up for the NCAA tournament. We'll have him playing 30-plus minutes a night by the time that things actually matter. And honestly, I could have even bought into that. You don't need him playing against the worst teams on your schedule. He did play against UNC. He did play against Mizzou. He did play against some of the best teams that they had in the non-con. But then you got to conference play, and it kept happening. And he kept asking out. And against Oklahoma State, he was playing well. And then, after he made a shot, he kind of tapped Bill Self to indicate, hey, I'm ready to come out. I'm done. I think I'm out of here. And he played 18 minutes. And then he was done. And they've just been dealing with this all season long. Bill Self, even after the game, was like, man, I thought we were past this, but clearly we're not. He's getting frustrated, not just privately, but also publicly. There have been stories that it's his handlers that are kind of leading to a lot of this stuff, where they're telling him, hey, put yourself on a little bit of a minutes restriction here. They're telling KU, hey, put him on a minutes restriction. The other night, they played against Arizona. He just opted out of the game. And I'm not saying he played the game and then he decided not to play any longer. No, before the game, his tummy was hurting.
Yeah.
And so he said, I can't go tonight, coach, against one of the top 5 teams in the country with dozens of NBA scouts in attendance. And so this is leading to the question of, is this something that schools are going to have to deal with now in the NIL era, where you have this one and done situation? Guys go to college. They don't really have any loyalty to these programs. They just know, hey, I've got to get through this. I'll show them a little bit here and there, so that way the NBA scouts know I'm still a high-level player, but I'll kind of get in my work as I please, do it on my own time, and then I'll get to the NBA as quick as possible. The last time I can remember something like this was Ben Simmons at the collegiate level, where he kind of chose when he wanted to play and when he didn't. Do you think this is a new trend that will be happening, or is this Darryn Peterson doing something that is very specific to him? I'm
hoping that this is just Peterson doing something that's specific to him, because I think if this becomes the norm, it's terrible for the sport. I think it's something that the NBA's had to fight off here over the last couple of years. I think it's terrible for the sport, to where you pay tickets to go see a game thinking, I can remember this growing up. I go to a game as a Pacers fan. Me and my buddies drive over to Indianapolis, and we're going to go see Paul George and the Pacers take on Melo and the Knicks. And then Melo sits out for load management. I didn't pay for my ticket to go watch Melo in dress clothes, right? And I think the same thing is true here of, yes, I understand it's a little different because Peterson's playing minutes, but you go to the game to watch this guy play. I think it'd be terrible for the sport if players start suddenly doing this at the collegiate level, especially these high-end top guys. But, yeah, we all know they are going to be in the lottery pick. We typically know this about guys like a Peterson basically 2 years in advance before they even get to college basketball, because they're such highly recruited studs out of high school. I hope this is not the norm, because this is a terrible look for the sport. And there's nothing that Bill Self can really do, because you can't really look at this and go, well, I don't want to get rid of that guy, because look at him. When he does play, he's freaking awesome. And with him on the floor, If you know what you're getting out of him, Kansas could go win a national championship with him. So you can't not recruit these guys, but you also don't have as much power you used to have. And I don't think you can, if people behind the scenes are giving him advice of, hey, it's probably best if we sit minutes so we make sure we don't get hurt before we go to the draft, I don't think you can stop that if you're a head coach, if you're Bill Self. So it's an ugly situation. I actually feel worse for Bill Self that he's got to deal with this from Peterson, who there's no way that I believe is having cramping issues all season long. I think this is Peterson restricting his minutes, and I think it's terrible for the game.
It's bad, but I don't really know what the fix is. We had somebody on the text line said that the problem with college basketball has always been players leaving after one season for the NBA. They need to make it a minimum of 2 years of college before they're draft eligible. I think the only way they could really do that would be if they go to the baseball rule, where you're either in college for 3 years or you can go after high school. That's the baseball rule, and it's something you could technically implement in basketball as well if you wanted to. But then you don't get this guy in college basketball. And I'm not sure that that's good for college basketball either. Like this season, the fact that you have Cam Boozer playing college basketball is good for the sport. The fact that you have, somebody like a Darryn Peterson playing college hoops, that's good. And the NCAA tournament, having him around, that's going to be more impactful for all of us to be able to watch him. That's fun. It's fun to see the best dudes playing against high-level competition. If they could just go after high school, you wouldn't get to see it. So I don't know that that's a fix either. I don't really know what you do here. I really don't. I think it's got to be – it's something that's internal for every guy. And so if you're looking at this from the NBA's perspective, for example, just kind of advance this a little bit, man, I don't know how you handle this if you're an NBA team. If you got a top 3 pick, you can clearly see the talent. It's off the charts. He is the best scorer in college basketball. I don't think there's a close second right now. And he's got it all. He's got a shot. He can get to the rim. He's a good free throw shooter. Like it's all there. His game is awesome. And he's got the size as well. He's already 6'6", more than 200 pounds. He's built like an NBA player already. I don't have really any questions about Darryn Peterson as a future NBA player other than does he want to play? Are we going to run into another Ben Simmons, another Kawhi Leonard kind of situation here where he plays on his own terms? Or does he really want to be out there? Is this something similar to Anthony Edwards, where when Edwards was in college, there was some of that, like, he went to Georgia? He didn't do a whole lot of winning at Georgia. Like, is this guy really committed to winning at the highest level? And now you see it, you're like, I can't believe that was ever a question about Anthony Edwards. That dude wants to win more than anybody in the world. He will rip your heart out if that's what it takes to win the basketball game. So I don't know. We'll see which direction this ultimately goes, but those are the questions that I think NBA scouts and ultimately NBA general managers are going to have to ask about this player who's unbelievably talented, but in a class that's wildly talented at the top. It's not going to be easy to make the decisions between he and Boozer and AJ over at BYU. There are some really high-level players that are available right now.
I think if you're an NBA GM, now, again, you can have the debate on, okay, where do you think this guy projects moving forward in terms of on the floor with his talent to Boozer and those guys, but I think you still have to take this guy. I'm not saying you have to take him over them, but I still think you have to take him in the top 3. You deal with this stuff all the time at the NBA level. This is nothing new, I think, for NBA GMs. We see, you mentioned Kawhi. Would you rather have Kawhi or not have Kawhi? My answer is I'd rather have Kawhi, right? Hell, the Clippers did it by allegedly doing all kinds of things behind the scenes to manipulate his cap hit. So I think you have to do it if you're a GM and just hope that, maybe he just doesn't really care about college basketball. And when he gets pro, he's going to have more of that fire in him and he becomes more of the Anthony Edwards. You almost have to take that risk because he's too talented, to the point of, like, is this something the NBA has to address right now or college basketball needs to address? I don't think we're there yet because he's really the only guy of these 2 talented freshmen that we're pointing at as having this issue.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned, like, the most recent one of kind of doing this was kind of Ben Simmons. That's almost a decade ago at this point. So right now we're not seeing this be a true problem for college basketball. He stands out because he is so gifted and so talented, and he's on a blue blood program like Kansas where he's doing this. Simmons did this at LSU, which was not a blue blood program. Same with Edwards. If there were questions about him, he's at Georgia, not a blue blood. Until we start actually seeing, like, all of the top guys in college basketball start to do this. Oh, I need out after my 18 minutes. Oh, I think I'm cramping. When you start having a bunch of the top talent do that, then there will be a conversation for the NCAA and the NBA to have. Will the NBA care? I would guess no. But that's when you have that conversation, and then you start to explore the idea, okay, do we need to extend this to where you have to have 2 years of eligibility in college basketball before you can come over to the NBA? But right now, I don't think it's something they have to address.
We got this from the 314. Guys, the schools could structure their NIL contracts so that they have to play at a certain number of games. Otherwise, they don't get the money. That would potentially prevent this. It could. Here's the problem. If you have a school that does that, you just don't get the player.
Yeah.
Because somebody else is going to be willing to take on Darryn Peterson. This wasn't just some random guy. This was one of the top prospects in all of college basketball heading into the season. So if Kansas had said, hey, we like you, we think you're excellent, but the only way you're getting this full amount of money that we're talking about is if you play in 30 basketball games this year. He'd say, that's great, I appreciate it, but this other team over here, Kentucky, is willing to guarantee me the whole pot of money, regardless of the number of games that I play this upcoming season, because they think I'm going to play 30, but there's always the off chance that I don't. And if I don't, then I want to be able to get that money still. So, yes, it would be a potential fix in theory, but there are other elements to this that have to be taken into consideration. And one of those elements is the player has all of the power. And this is something that we are seeing a reckoning with in all of college sports. The players are the ones that have the power now. It used to be exclusively on the coach's side. It was all about the schools, right? You go back 15 years ago, I remember a lot of places, like if a coach would buy a meal for a player, it was considered to be like a recruiting violation.
Yeah.
So the power has just swung so far in the opposite direction that now the players have all of it. I don't think it was good at the time. I don't think it's great now. They probably needed to meet somewhere in the middle, but they opted against it because they were so hesitant to allow players to be paid. And now they said, you know what? Screw it. You could be paid. We have no rules on any of this stuff. And now this is the situation we're dealing with.
Yeah, like I love the idea of having kind of guardrails, if you'll call it that, on some of these contracts of, hey, you have to play 20 games to lock in this full deal. Or even like if you wanted to do like performance bonuses and stuff like that, which there might be in some of these contracts. That all sounds great, except you're the one person putting rules on yourself compared to rules being applied to all, whatever it is, 200 plus schools that are in college basketball or 130 something at the FBS level in college football. So you have to keep playing in the wild, wild west because in theory, like in college football, for example, wouldn't it be great if these 2-year contracts, you couldn't, I don't know, enter the portal and have part of it paid back to the school? Yeah, that'd be great. You know why you're not going to do that? Because nobody else is doing it across the sport. And it's the same that's true for college basketball. So you have to just go with the idea of, all right, I guess I'm going to give this player X amount of dollars in NIL, and we'd rather have him rather than watch him go play for BYU potentially if you're Peterson in Kansas. If you're Bill Self, you're going, man, if that guy plays 20 minutes for me with the talent I've got on this roster, maybe I can still go win the NCAA tournament.
It's worth it. The upside is worth the risk that's involved. And I do want to, like, as an NBA GM, I'll say this. If you have the alternative in this year's draft of, hey, we can go get Boozer, we can go get AJ. There's a couple other dudes at the top of the draft that are incredibly talented and would be the number one pick in most drafts. So if you have those as alternative, the opportunity cost is like, man, I think I might just go in the other direction this year. After those 2 or 3 other top guys, though, I think the risk becomes worth it if you're an NBA team where you're like, hey, listen, I know there's some stuff here, but did you watch him? Like, did you see that guy? He's unbelievable. I mean, the scoring ability is almost Carmelo Anthony-esque. Like, that's what we're talking about here is the ability to score is at such a high level. If you watch him, I want to make this clear.
First off, if you've watched him, it's like watching a lion roar.
Yeah,
it's rare.
It's a comet flying across the sky. I'm not saying he's going to be these players. I'm just saying if you guys have the opportunity to do so, go watch him shoot. Just pull up a video on Instagram or on Twitter or wherever else and just go watch him and watch his shot and think about who does this look like? It is almost a mirror image of Kobe Bryant / Michael Jordan. It looks exactly the same as those guys. And I'm not telling you he's going to be those players, but his shot looks like it's very clear he has modeled his game after those two guys. And Kobe modeled his game after Michael, and Michael was the first of this group. But man, it's crazy to see. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And so the idea of I'm giving up on that kind of talent, it's hard to imagine. So I get why Bill Self is going through with all of this, and he keeps trying it, and they're going to get to the NCAA tournament. And if Darryn Peterson decides, hey, we get to March, second round, Sweet 16, I'm ready to go, they could win the title.
Yep.
He's that good. And their team is that good. They've been a really good team this year, despite all of the stuff they're dealing with. They're a top 15-ish team in the country.
I mean, they beat Houston without him.
Yeah.
I mean, and Houston's really freaking good.
Arizona.
They beat Arizona
without
That's
him.
what I was thinking of, Arizona. And Arizona's freaking unbelievable.
Yeah. So this is a team that could still win the title despite all of this stuff we're talking about here. And part of that is because of what he brings to the table. You'll be able to see Kansas versus Houston next Monday, Kansas versus Arizona next Saturday. Those are two of the best games that you could possibly ask for in college basketball. We'll see if Darryn Peterson decides that he wants to play in either of those two games. By the way, a little bit of news on the college basketball side of things. The NCAA has decided, at least for now, it's not going to expand with the tournament.
All right. That's what I'm talking about. That's a win.
Sounds like they're probably going to do so to 76 teams sooner rather than later. I understand why they're doing it. It's all about money. It's the same reason that the conference realignment took place. Like, follow the money. You'll understand why everybody does everything, really. There's no need. Like, the one thing that we have right now that makes all the sense in the world is the NCAA tournament. It's the perfect number of teams. I honestly think 64 was fine, but if you want to include the first four, fine, whatever. That's fine by me. We do not need more teams in the NCAA tournament. We're at the exact right amount. The bracket is perfect. Let's just leave it as it is. We don't need to continue to expand.
I'm with you. I hate that seeing this. My mom always told me, money doesn't always buy happiness. And right now, we don't need that money for our happiness. I love the NCAA tournament as it is. And the thing that annoys me most is it's not going to benefit the teams that could probably use an expansion, right? Like a team like VCU, for example. If you expand, probably deserving of being a tournament team this year as an at-large bid from the A10, which is it a great conference? No. Is it solid? Yeah, it's a solid conference that could deserve two teams if you expand. And instead, we're going to lock in Missouri. We're going to lock in Texas. We're going to lock in a team that's behind them in the standings. No thanks. I don't need to see those teams. I'm not even sure Missouri belongs in the tournament still this year. So, yeah, I'm against expanding the NCAA tournament.
A little bit of a spoiler alert. If you're watching the Canada versus Finland game later today, go ahead and turn down your radio for the next 30 seconds or so. Just wanted to give you a heads up ahead of time in case you are somebody that wants to watch this later, doesn't want to see any spoilers today. 3, 2, 1. Team Canada down 2-0 in the early going here in this tournament. T-Bone, I did not see the latest goal. Did you?
I did. It was a shorthanded goal from Finland, and they got a breakaway. I'm not exactly sure how it happened. I think it was a shot was blocked. They came in on the breakaway, and Bennington didn't make the save. He got beat. It was forehand, backhand, went to the glove side. They got him between the pad and the glove. Again, the two goals that have been given up, they're tough saves, but big game better hasn't been able to make those two big saves yet, while Canada's still searching for their game without their captain Crosby.
2-0, Finland up over Team Canada. Alongside T-Bone and Bradford Bruns, who's back in the studio for us today. I'm Brandon Kiley. We're broadcasting live at the ENB Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center. If you guys want to get involved in the show, the way to do so is twofold. One, you can get on the Air Comfort Service text line at 314-399-9646. You can also check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Coming up next, pretty important person seems to be getting involved with the NIL issues in college football. Is he going to be able to find a fix? And which sport currently has the most stability? We'll get into all of that coming up next here on BK and Ferrario.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777. Stupiracy, it's the podcast where stupidity and conspiracy collide. Episode 3, Weird Origins of Common Phrases. Common expressions like cat got your tongue and bite the bullet feel harmless in modern conversation until you peel back the layers of history and the origins of these familiar sayings. Stupiracy Season 2 is out now, including our latest episode where we spill the beans on some of these common phrases and the surprisingly dark, strange, and often misunderstood histories hiding behind them. Listen wherever you get your podcasts or watch on YouTube. Presented by CarStar, your auto body repair experts. Locally owned with a nationwide guarantee. Visit carstar.com.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
U.S. men continue quest for Olympic gold. Good morning, I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Team USA will face Slovakia in the semifinals this afternoon after hanging on to defeat Sweden Wednesday. Dalibor Dvorsky's home country, meanwhile, has impressed so far, with Blues head coach Jim Montgomery taking note of number 15's contributions.
Dvorsky is just popped. Like, this should give him all kinds of confidence to be able to handle any situation that he sees in the NHL moving forward. He's not going to be always producing like he's been producing here in the Olympics, but he's going to know how to help the team win because he's going to have that mental confidence of being able to succeed against the best in the world.
Puck drop set for 2:10 p.m. at Santa Julia Arena. Right now, top-seeded Canada trailing Finland 2-0. Jordan Bennington made 7 first-period saves. Your Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
What I'm about to say is not political in nature, I promise you. Josh Pate, one of the leading college football analysts out there now, does a bunch of stuff on social media, has his own show, and is now on ESPN, does a lot of stuff on Get Up and whatnot throughout the college football season. And he does a really good job. He's got a college football podcast, and on that podcast, he tweeted out yesterday, he's going to have Donald Trump on, the president of the United States. Now, however you feel about Donald Trump, I don't much care for this conversation. But the reason that Trump was on his show was to talk about the NIL landscape. Now, he's doing that for a reason. Like, he's not just deciding on a whim, I'm going to go talk with this Josh Pate guy. I really love his podcast. I think it's fantastic. He's going on the show because he's getting involved in this stuff. And if he's getting involved, that means Congress is going to get involved, which means they're really looking at what can we do to solve the issues that currently exist with college football's NIL. Now, this would have a trickle-down effect to other sports, don't get me wrong, but college football is where the most money is, right? They're going to this new revenue share model, which is not limited to you have a salary cap of $25 million a year. It just means like everybody basically has $25 million to play with. And then anything on top of that is from the traditional NIL that you get through endorsement deals and whatnot. But that is something that suggests, hey, if you got $25 million in this sport, that's the one we're going to be focused on here. T-Bone, do you think this is something that is fixable through Congress, through oversight, through legislation, as opposed to something that would take place through something like a collective bargaining agreement?
I think it's potentially the best path forward. Is it fixable? I'm not 100% sure on that, but I don't think you're ever going to get a collective bargaining agreement. And the reason I say that is, why would the players come to the table right now when they have all of the power? The people that want the collective bargaining agreement are the ones that are losing the battle right now, which would be the universities and the coaches, where there's a wild, wild west. So I think if there is any fix towards this issue with the college system, it probably is going to have to come through Congress, through the president. It's going to have to be something that goes through them. And really what I think it probably comes down to is I don't know if they will be the ones that will set the rules for everything. But the thing that might help most would just be giving the NCAA that exemption where they can avoid some of these lawsuits, right? Where Chambliss is suing them for eligibility. If you give them protection on that, now Chambliss automatically is out of eligibility, right? Then you kind of give a little bit more power back to the NCAA, who can determine what the status is of players like they used to, right? It used to be they would tell you, hey, you don't have any eligibility left and you can go pro or go enjoy your new 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
And there was no question about it, right? It was, all right, well, I guess the NCAA says I'm out of eligibility. I sent in my little letter to them and tried to get that, and they ruled on it, so I guess I'm out of eligibility. Now the answer is, oh, so that's what you think. That's cool. Let me hire my lawyer. We're going to bring in a lawsuit, and we're going to try and fight this. And as you saw with Chambliss, he won his case. He's now eligible again. We'll see with Joey Aguilar. I don't think his has been decided yet for Tennessee. I know Brett Bielema has brought this up. Like, yeah, we're still looking at defensive lineman improvements. It depends if these guys get their eligibility back or not. So I think that's where it has to start. But, yeah, I think if there is a path forward, the one that is probably best is going through Congress and going through the president, because I don't see why the players would come and collectively bargain and hurt themselves.
You just got to the point that I was going to make. I don't see any other scenario that would actually be possible. So not only is it the best path forward, I think it might be the only path forward. Because why, if you're – put yourself in the player's shoes for a minute. First of all, you have – 3 to 5 years, I guess in some cases 7 years, to be able to make as much money as possible and to go through this whole process. Collectively bargaining is going to take a lot of time. So if you decide to be somebody that's like highly involved in this, let's say you're a sophomore and you get involved in this process of setting up what the next iteration of college sports is going to look like, you're not really even doing that for you. You're doing that for the next group of individuals that is a part of collegiate athletics, which, I mean, there's value in doing that. That becomes your legacy. You were one of the individuals that put that together, but is there incentive to do that? I don't know. Beyond that, now, again, put yourself into their shoes. Why am I fighting against my own self-interests? It's the same thing as baseball right now, where baseball players, whether you agree with them or not, their perspective on the matter is, why would I put restrictions in place when I don't currently have those restrictions? Like, what am I getting in return in order to do so? If you're a player in college football, why would I give up all the flexibility that I currently have? Every offseason, I'm a free agent. I can make the most money possible going anywhere that I want. I have complete freedom of movement, which is unlike any other professional sport in North America. In every other sport, they've got contracts in place. We don't. Right now in college athletics, dude, I can go anywhere at any time and just go to the highest bidder. I'm going to put restrictions on that willingly? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. What am I getting in return? And the honest answer is, man, the NCAA, these conferences, they don't really have anything more to offer. Yeah. They're already giving all of the money back into these sports now, so I don't see a bargaining chip that exists on the other side. So that's why you're going to see a lot of lobbying from the NCAA and from these conferences to say to Congress and to say to the president, we need your help. It's the only way that we can get some kind of guardrails on here to be able to get the sport back into the place that makes sense for everybody involved. And if we're being real, I think there's even benefits to the kids. I don't think a lot of the kids see it right now, but I don't think it's great for kids to go to 5 different colleges. I just don't. I think that it is helpful for you to be able to grow up in an area with a community that you're able to go from an 18-year-old kid that came on campus to a 21, 22-year-old kid that grew a lot over that time. And you develop relationships. You develop a supporting net that allows you to continue to blossom as both a player and an individual. I think there is value in all of that stuff. Is it as much value as a $5 million contract? Maybe not. But I think later on in life, a lot of kids are thankful for what they had as their experience in college. So, moral of the story, I do think this stuff is necessary. I think it's going to take a whole hell of a lot of time to be able to get there. Last thing that I wanted to get to on this T-Bones, that way we can start late the way that we normally would. I don't want to have us starting at 11 o'clock right on the dot. Which sport currently has the most stability? Like, if you're looking around, the NBA yesterday came out and said, hey, we've got to figure out this tanking stuff. We've got to put more restrictions in place. Maybe you can't trade as many first-round picks. Maybe we're going to do things based upon how we're going to set the NBA draft order based on the last 2 years of what you had as your winning percentage, or they're going to do what Major League Baseball has done, where, hey, you can only get a top 4 pick twice in a row, and then you'll be restricted down the road. So the NBA's got those issues. Major League Baseball certainly has its own issues in place right now, where we're not even sure if they're playing baseball next year. Which sport in your mind is in the best place right now?
I think the one for me, I think there's 2 options here realistically. I think it's the NHL and the NFL, and I would go NFL's in the best shape. I mean, they continue to grow, which is unbelievable what they are doing. They're talking about expanding international games. Goodell's floating out the idea of adding an extra regular season game, which is nothing but better for the league. I don't know if it's probably arguably not better for the players for putting that much more on their bodies. And I hate to say this, but the NFL PA is not a very strong PA. So the NFL can kind of say what they want. They're going to kind of get it. And I think we're going to see that when it comes to this 18th regular season game that they're talking about. They'll give them some incentives, but when Goodell sets his mind, man, they get it at the NFL level. So I would say it's the NFL. And I think Goodell's come from a long way as well, because I think this is important as well, is having a good messenger as commissioner. And as we're seeing in baseball, Manfred sucks at it. I think Goodell wasn't great at it there a couple years ago, and I think he's been able to kind of turn
I think Goodell just talks less now. I think he learned,
that might
I'm
be
not
the way to
good
go
at
about
this.
it.
I'm bad at the public messaging. I will just allow the game to speak for itself. I will talk once a year when we get to the NFL Super Bowl. That's it.
And to his credit, if he realized that, that's smart.
Yep.
Right? Let the game do the talking. You shut up and go talk at that one media availability. So I would say it's the NFL. I think they are in the best spot moving forward and what they are doing with the league. And they're doing all this of, hey, here's how we grow the game, right? We're going international, doing this. And they're all doing that without even having to bring up the idea of expansion just yet. All these other leagues, they're kind of running out of ideas. The NHL's like, how about we have 34 teams? It's like, do you have the talent for that? I don't think you do.
I think the NFL is definitely in the best spot. You look at the way that the game is continuing to explode financially. And this year, the salary cap's like $300 billion. It's absurd. Gambling certainly has a big part of that. The sport that gets the most money from gambling and has the most interest from gambling and fantasy, places like Underdog, all of that, it's the NFL. So that's a big part of it. Just also the way that the NFL is structured, where you have one game a week and you can basically dominate from Thursday to Monday. That's a huge part of it as well. Structurally, it's an easy sport to be able to continue moving forward with.
Tomorrow morning, it's a college basketball doubleheader. Game 1, St. John's and Creighton. Game 2, Houston and Arizona. Coverage starts at 10:30. Your home for the NCAA is 101 ESPN. WXOS, WXOS HD1 East St. Louis, and KPNT HD Collinsville. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios, you're tuned into BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Hey, alongside Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Appreciate you guys tuning in. It's 11:04. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Bradford Bruns back in the studio with us today. We are broadcasting live on YouTube as well, youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. You can get involved in the show with 314-399-9646. News today out at Cardinals spring training as JJ Wetherholt, according to Jeff Jones, was brought up as a potential option at leadoff for the Cardinals this season. He tweets the following: as part of a wider-ranging discussion about the lineup construction with Marmol this morning, Wetherholt's name was bandied about as a potential option at leadoff. If you're insisting that he will not be on the opening day roster, it is long past time to realign those expectations. I don't really know who those people are. Feels like a bit of a straw man to me.
Was that a shot at Heim? Heim was the one who was saying, he's got to earn it at spring training.
Yeah, I truly don't know. I think he is very clearly your starting second baseman on opening day. I like the idea of him batting in the top three. I've mentioned this before. I think batting him second would make some sense with the lineup construction. But if they want to go leadoff, I was just trying to go through what that would look like. You could go Wetherholt batting leadoff. I would say Mason Wynn probably at that point is your two-hole hitter.
I'd agree, yeah.
3 Burley, 4 Herrera, 5 I think Gorman. 5's where it gets a little tricky.
Probably, maybe Newport when he's back healthy, but yeah, sure. Gorman probably starts at 5. I agree.
And then 6 Pozo, 7 Walker.
Forgot about Pozo.
8 I guess the JC, and then actually probably 8 would be Victor Scott, 9's a JC. That's probably the way that you go about it.
Because they would want to break up that right-handed lane.
Mm-hmm.
I think at that point.
And the lefty to switch it over whenever you go the 9-1.
That too. Yeah, that too as well. Yeah, so that's probably what they would do. I'm kind of with you. I don't mind the idea of him being top 3. I brought this up originally when you asked me this question 2 or 3 weeks ago about hey, do you care where Wetherholt hits? And I'm like, not really, but I would think you start him low in the order just to kind of, Ollie likes to ease guys into roles. You'll really see him do this in the bullpen this year, especially early on for Pusher, their Rule 5 pick, and some of the other guys that are there. He'll just see where everybody kind of falls in. But in your lineup, man, everybody's kind of out of place. Like you mentioned Wynn in the 2 spot there in that lineup that you drew up. And I'm not even saying that it's wrong because you're right with the way you constructed that. Wynn's not a 2-hole hitter. Wynn's arguably not even a leadoff hitter on a contending team. Wynn probably belongs in that Sajasi spot in the lineup on a good team. But because you're in a rebuild and you have all these guys that are hitting out of their typical spot in the order, I think it's okay to push Wetherholt up there. So I don't mind it. And when we talk about Wetherholt and kind of what, based on what I read and what I see on his scouting report about what his kind of power truly is, I think he screams Matt Carpenter. And Matt Carpenter was a hell of a leadoff hitter for the Cardinals, where it was he's a doubles machine. He's going to get on base at a good clip, and then you have the heart of the order to drive him in. So I love the idea of potentially hitting him in the leadoff spot to start things.
I think we've also just seen a change in Major League Baseball and what teams are looking for out of that leadoff spot. They just want to get their best hitters the most at-bats. And as long as they're not huge power hitters, there are a lot of teams, you're not going to probably bat like an Aaron Judge leadoff, right? You want that guy driving other players in. You want your on-base guys at the top, and then you want your power guys getting them in. So you can bat them second, third, whatever. But you're probably not going to put them at the absolute top of the order. Wetherholt doesn't really profile to be that anyways. So he's expected to be a pretty high on-base percentage player. He does make a lot of contact. And so I want him getting a ton of at-bats. I want him setting the table for guys like Burleson and Herrera and potentially Gorman if Walker decides to hit this year. If this is the breakout campaign for him, great. He can be one of the guys that drives him in. I think he makes a lot of sense at the top of the order, and this isn't where I expected us to go with this conversation, T-Bone, but I think it's worthwhile given what we just saw from Jeff Jones tweeted out. This is also why I don't think that Lars Nootbaar has a real long-term future here in St. Louis. I don't see a way that he can necessarily be a part of the core if this is where Wetherholt ultimately lands at the top of your order. Because Lars Nootbaar's value is this. Leadoff hitter from the left side that gets on base at a really high clip. I don't want that guy batting third. I don't really want that guy batting fifth either. I want more contact in the middle of my order. Lars Nootbaar's best value is for a contending team getting on base at a really high clip, batting in that leadoff spot. If they think that's potentially JJ Wetherholt's future, I think it's the latest indicator that not only is Lars Nootbaar expected to miss the start of the season, I don't anticipate that he's going to be with the team beyond this season either.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point because though it certainly feels like if you've listened to yesterday's show or the latest episode of the Redbird Report yesterday when we talked about this as well, it seems like I'm the guy that's arguing for Nootbaar to be here, a part of this core. I'm not necessarily. I'm just not as closed door on it because I think there's all kinds of things that have to happen. And one of those that I haven't brought up because I didn't really think about it because I didn't consider this a possibility just yet in his career is Wetherholt in the leadoff spot. Because if Wetherholt doesn't do it, they don't have anybody that does profile as a leadoff hitter, in my opinion, because I don't think Scott's that guy. I know his speed's tempting. I just don't think he's going to get on base at a good enough clip. Mason Wynn's not that guy. I don't think he's ever going to get on base at a good enough clip. And if Wetherholt doesn't do it, now I don't know who your answer is internally for the leadoff spot. So, again, it's one of those where if Wetherholt doesn't do it, maybe there's that conversation with Nootbaar that pops up again. But it's such a slim possibility because I still can see Wetherholt being a guy that ultimately settles in that leadoff spot because you're right. People got mad at me when I brought up the idea of Goalie hitting in leadoff a couple of years ago. Goalie was less of that characteristic for it, even though he had the high on base because of what you said with like Judge. You want that kind of guy driving in runs. Wetherholt's probably more of a table setter or the guy that you want just to get the most at-bats in that two spot because of his doubles power, right? When I think of the guys that hit in the middle of the order, I say this all the time. It's the right in pen, 30 home runs, 100 RBI guy. And I don't know that he's ever going to be that.
I would say right now, the way that I'm looking at their team, I think we have the conversation about the core all the time, right? And part of that is just an easier way without having to explain it of talking about where guys fit into your lineup. I think JJ Wetherholt has a really good shot of being a 1 or a 2-hole hitter long term for this team. So that's somebody that's toward the top of your lineup.
Worst case scenario, maybe 5.
Sure, but ideally 1 to 2.
Yeah.
The reason why I say that is because I think Burleson ideally is a 5-hole hitter. I think he makes a ton of sense kind of as that transition piece in your lineup, has a little bit of pop, makes great contact, left side. I think he makes a lot of sense batting roughly in that range of your lineup, 5 or 6, kind of as that transition piece. I think Herrera long-term can profile as a 2 or a 3-hole hitter.
Agreed.
I think he makes a lot of sense there. So you have already developed, or you're hoping that you can develop, 3 of your top 5 hitters. What you're lacking right now are those 2 pieces that you just mentioned. Basically, you're lacking prime Arenado, prime Goldie. Those are hard pieces to find. I'm not suggesting that, like, all right, dude, we're ready to go, baby. Here it is. But it's nice that you're starting to see some of this take shape. It's also a reminder, I mentioned Mason Wynn batting 2nd on this team. He should probably be batting like 7th on a contender. I mentioned Burleson batting 3rd on this team. I think he's probably more of a 5 to 6-hole hitter. Gorman's batting in that 5-hole probably for this team. As we're talking about Wetherholt's being potentially the leadoff guy, he's probably more of like a 7-hole hitter for a legitimate contender, maybe an 8-hole hitter for a contender. So there are guys that are hitting out of position right now, but it requires them to develop the next 2 and 3 and 4-hole hitters somewhere in that range, 2 of those 3, to be able to put them where they probably belong long term.
Yeah, and this is the problem that they ran into a couple of years ago. Now, it wasn't the primary parts, the 3-4, because they had that at the time. It was, I think, Goldie and Ozuna. But remember, that's what we had the conversation about with Bader. Well, why is everybody hated Bader? Well, it wasn't that you hated Bader that he wasn't a good baseball player. It was you hated watching him hit in the 5 spot because he wasn't a 5-hole hitter. And it's going to be the toughest part about what this build becomes because as we have these conversations, and you've got mad at me before about saying this, but what would it mean if, like, Burleson continues to do this moving forward? And my answer is it means nothing until you get the middle of the order, right? Because otherwise you just end up in a spot where you continue to have guys that are hitting in spots in the order that they're not supposed to be. Yes, he can develop into a good piece. It means nothing for you as an organization until you eventually get the guys that belong in the middle of that order in that 3-4 spot. If you never get them, all you do is you're basically treading water, and you might end up, at best case scenario, settling in as like a 500 club, a fringe playoff team. If you want to truly be a playoff contender, you have got to find those heart of the order pieces. I don't know exactly where they're coming from yet in this build. Maybe Wetherholt surprises us and he does become one of them. But if you don't find those guys, you just end up stuck with your lineup.
JJ Wetherholt was on TMA earlier today. If you missed his conversation with the guys, it was your prototypical Cardinal. I mean, he was asked, would you be disappointed if you don't make the opening day roster? And he was like, oh, no, I just want to do whatever's best for the team. If they decide that it's best for the team to win without having me a part of the group, I'll just go down, put my head down, and work hard at AAA. It's like, okay, this is such a Paul Goldschmidt type of an answer. But he just felt like such a Cardinal. He did, I would say, the biggest thing to come out of this conversation, and it's not new. We've heard this previously. He mentioned he's most comfortable playing at second base, which makes sense as to why he's playing there. If I was the Cardinals, I would have just gone to him, and I'm guessing this is something that happened. Said, hey, where do you want to play? You want to play second? You want to play third? And if he came back and said, well, I want to play short, I would say, you want to play second? You want to play third? Those are your two options. It's pretty clear he's most comfortable at second. So it makes sense that that is the position that he's ultimately going to be landing at to begin his major league career. Get him comfortable, and then let's see where he goes from there. Earlier today, Buster Olney put out his top 10 second baseman in Major League Baseball heading into 2026. No surprise, Ketel Marte at number 1. Starting at number 2, I think that's where JJ Wetherholt could ultimately find himself by the end of the season. Nico Horner is 2, Jazz Chisholm 3, Bryce Terang 4 rather, and Brendan Donovan at number 5. I think that's kind of the range that you're hoping to see JJ Wetherholt find himself within the next year or two, heading into the 2027 or 2028 season, if we have them. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to dive into some NFL quick hitters, but next, man, this NCAA tournament is setting up to be a potential all-timer. And could we see a SLU versus Illinois matchup in the second round of this tournament? Could we see SLU versus Mizzou in the first round? We'll get into that next year on 101 ESPN.
The Spread Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the 101 mobile app. The Spread Zone is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more.
Ready to ramp up the excitement, golf fans? BetMGM is making your next golf tournament winner bets even better with Second Chance. What's Second Chance? Ever bet on your favorite golfer to win a tournament, only to see them miss the green? Well, with BetMGM's Second Chance promotion, you'll get your stake back in cash if your tournament winner bet finishes in second instead. That's right. Simply bet on any player to win a scheduled golf tournament during a promotional week. If you're right, you win. But if your pick finishes in second instead of first, you get your stake back in cash. Watch your favorite players go for the win all season long and bet knowing you'll get your stake back if they finish second. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only, Missouri only. Subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards paid back in unrestricted withdrawable funds. Please play responsibly.
JJ and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Happy to be with you here today. Bradford Bruns back in the studio. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios out of the Centene Community Ice Center. So yesterday, there was this media mock NCAA tournament selection that took place. If you're on Twitter, you probably saw people going through it. And they were basically learning, okay, what is this process like? Because there's so much that's changing, especially over the last 5 years, as there are more and more of these metrics, these new age metrics that are incorporated. There's a new one within the last couple of years of like wins over the bubble, I think is what it's called. There's also the KenPom metrics, predictive stuff that's incorporated. There's a bunch of different ways that they're looking at things. And so they went through their initial, hey, how would the NCAA tournament look if the season ended today? Kind of similar to the weekly college football playoff rankings that we see. So in their initial rankings, they had the following teams as the 1 seeds: Michigan, Duke, Arizona, and Houston. That all makes sense to me.
Agreed.
If you're an Illini fan, they had them as the 7th overall seed, so one of the 2 seeds in the NCAA tournament. In the top 20, they did not have SLU. So that was kind of if you're looking at the S curve, they didn't have them as one of the protected seeds. They did, however, have SLU as a 6 seed playing in St. Louis in this particular bracket, which I found to be quite interesting. T-Bone, when you saw what they had revealed, what was your biggest takeaway from seeing kind of what the potential bracket could look like this year?
Well, mine for Illinois, since I'm the Illinois resident, is they've still got their path clear for a 1 seed. Now, it's not easy by any means of the imagination because it's going to require beating Michigan, who they've still got on their schedule. Now, if you want to look at it on a more positive side of things, they get Michigan at home, which is a big game for them. And they're going to have potentially, depending on how the seeding lays out in the Big Ten tournament, 2 chances at it. Now, I think if you go 1-1 against them, odds are they're probably just going to favor Michigan over you. So you probably have to beat them at home and then potentially also beat them in the Big Ten tournament. But there's still a path for Illinois. I was curious to see how they would look at them, especially considering they just had back-to-back losses where they lost to Wisconsin, who's a good team, and Michigan State, who are good teams. But it was back-to-back losses added to your resume. But based on this, and if this is how the committee would go based on how the media did, you still have your path clear for potentially a 1 seed. Does that really matter? I don't necessarily think so, but you're at least still have an opportunity to do it.
In this bracket, I misspoke. I said that SLU was a 6 seed. They were a 7 seed in this bracket in the St. Louis region. I think if you're a SLU fan and you have to decide, like, hey, would you rather be a 6 seed somewhere else or a 7 seed here in the St. Louis region? I think I would pick St. Louis. Do you agree with that, T-Bone?
I would, yeah.
Just be local.
Yeah.
And that's allowed, by the way, because like for any team that they would potentially see that's here in the city, they would be going up against them most likely in the 2nd round. And those teams wouldn't be protected from SLU playing in St. Louis because SLU does not play in the building that they will be playing in as part of the NCAA tournament. So I find that to be an interesting wrinkle because it's possible they could play Illinois in the 2nd round, for example, or they could play even Mizzou in the 1st round potentially because Mizzou, at least in this early reveal, was an 11 seed as part of the first 4. They had them going up against Santa Clara, which seems like a nightmare matchup for Mizzou, but neither here nor there, as part of the first 4. And then the winner of that game would take on Texas Tech in the 1st round, which, again, seems like an absolute nightmare scenario. My biggest takeaway from this, though, just looking kind of big picture, oh, my God, this is a deep field.
Yeah.
They have Arkansas as a 4 seed. Arkansas is amazing. They're ridiculously talented with one of the best freshmen in the country who just went for 40 the other night. That Vandy team that we just saw Mizzou beat the other day, which has been excellent all year long, they're a 5 seed in this tournament. They have BYU, who might have the projected number 1 overall pick, as a 6 seed in this year's tournament. I mean, the pool is incredibly deep. And then you look at the top 2 seeds. The top 2 seeds are amazing this season. Arizona, Houston, Michigan, Duke, and then Iowa State, UConn, Illinois, Purdue. I think I'm out on UConn at this point in time, but other than that, any of those other 7 teams I think can realistically win the title. Add in Florida, who's a 3 seed, Kansas, who's a 3 seed. I think those teams can also realistically project to win a title this year. I wouldn't say this is a wide open field because that's more often the case whenever there's not like the world beaters at the top.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of teams at the top that feel elite. It is not like it has been over the last couple of years where I struggle to find a team that I trust going in. I trust a lot of these teams this year, and that's what's going to make it really interesting is, man, that's going to be hard once you get to the second round of your bracket to figure out who you're going to take to advance.
Yeah, I'm with you because I remember last year when we had conversations going into the tournament, and you had said, hey, it feels to me like this is going to be one of those tournaments where the chalk wins, right? You always end up kind of with a higher seed advancing. And I thought, oh, no, surely it's March, right? We'll see upsets. And that didn't occur really last year. I think that's going to occur this year, and I think you're going to see a lot of these top seeds end up getting to the Elite Eight, Final Four, potentially maybe all the 4-1s will be there because I'm with you. I think there's about 10 teams that have a realistic chance to win the tournament, and that's not to say that they might even get upset. Like if you ran into Arkansas on their best day, they could easily beat Michigan in this where they're at right now in the bracket. Like I wouldn't bet on that, but Arkansas, when they play their best basketball, man, they could beat a team like Michigan. And the same can be said for like Michigan State. Izzo's squad, Izzo time about this time of year, where he always somehow, no matter what it is going to get his squad to the Elite Eight. And if they run into Arizona, I would probably take Arizona. But would it shock me if Michigan State won that game? Not at all. And I think you can really say that about anybody from 1 through 4, and then you might even maybe be able to argue one of the 5 or 6s as well. That's how deep I think it is up at the top.
How do you think fans locally would respond? I don't think this is likely to happen, but sometimes you get these kinds of storylines that they like to set up in the NCAA tournament. How do you think fans locally would respond if it was 6 seed SLU versus 11 seed Mizzou, with the winner getting Illinois in the second round here in the city of St. Louis?
I think it'd be great for this tournament headquarters here in St. Louis because everybody would come out and it'd be like a split arena essentially, right? Split arena for Missouri fans, don't have to travel far.
Rights.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that would be good. I think they'll probably try.
I think they'll avoid Mizzou being part of that.
I think they will. I don't know that they would avoid SLU and Illinois.
I agree.
I think they would be willing to let the Billikens go up against Illinois. And it's probably, if you're a 2 seed for Illinois, it's the closest one to you to go play in for the weekend. I don't think they'll care about that one to avoid. But I think it would be awesome if they were able to do that because it would be like bragging rights. Like you said, there'd be about half the fans of Tigers, half the fans would be Billikens. And then you get to the next round, and it would be truly like bragging rights if somehow Missouri was able to pull off a miracle. Or it would be the same with SLU. SLU would have about half their fan base there, and Illinois would travel well to the game as well.
I think it'd be unbelievable. Talk about great theater. And to be able to have that all hosted right here in the city of St. Louis, downtown would be rocking in a way that it very rarely is, but that'd be a hell of a lot of fun. Somebody from the 314 asks a fair follow-up question. So the field is deep, but you think the top seeds are going to advance. Can you explain how that makes any sense? Sure, I'd be happy to do so. I probably didn't state that clearly. It is a very deep field, and the way that I think you look at teams this year that are 6 seeds. In years past, they are the quality of those 3 seeds. So that's what I mean when it's deep. Like SLU as a 6 seed is a ridiculously talented 6 seed. BYU as a 6 seed having the potential number 1 overall pick, that is abnormal. You don't see that very often. Some of the 3 seeds this year could have been 1 seeds in previous years based on the quality of the teams. So when I say it's deep, that's what I'm referencing. When I'm also saying that I think some of the top seeds will advance, it's because I would say that the top probably 7-ish teams are even a tier above that group that I just mentioned. And so I trust a lot of teams that are in the top 6 seeds this year. I think there are going to probably be fewer upsets in the first round than we've seen in previous years. But once you get to that second round, SLU can beat anybody. They're a 6 seed that can take down, or a 7 seed. They can take down a 1 or a 2. early in this year's tournament if they get the right matchups and things break their way correctly. And BYU has the kind of player that could go for 50 against one of these teams that we're talking about. So that's going to make it really tricky early in this year's tournament. And that's what I'm talking about is once you get beyond the first round, that's when I think you'll start to see more of the upsets. Whereas in the first round, I think a lot of these top 7 seeds or so are just better than a lot of the teams they'll see beneath them. They're less flawed than we've seen in recent years. And I don't know why that is. I think a lot of it is the freshman class is just that good. And the talent has been dispersed because of NIL. Previously, it was a lot of the transfer portal stuff. I think this year it's the NIL that's allowed for the talent to be dispersed wider. But it's a really good year for the NCAA tournament. If you haven't watched much college basketball, and this is kind of the time of the year that you check in, I recommend doing so sooner rather than later because you're going to see some unbelievable matchups.
Especially out of the Big 12.
Over the next couple of weeks. Yeah, some of the games that you'll see from like Iowa State down the stretch has games against BYU, Texas Tech, and Arizona. Kansas still has another game against Arizona. Arizona's scheduled down the stretch. Houston, Kansas, Iowa State. I mean, it's crazy what you're going to see down the stretch. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. Illinois also still has that matchup left with Michigan coming up a week from today.
Heck, this weekend you're going to get a good non-conference game to see who could be the 1 seed overall. Michigan is playing Duke, which is going to be really fun to see. So,
and that's for like the number 1 overall seed.
Yeah, so you're right. This time of the year, if you're typically checking in, typically you're not going to get these kind of games late in the year. You might get 1 or 2. For some reason, I don't know if the conferences did this on purpose or not, but they have really loaded their schedules to where all the top teams are playing the top teams right now this kind of year before we get to the conference tournament.
He's T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, NFL Quick Hitters here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
Jamie Rivers here, and it is time for a New Jersey giveaway. This month, we've got your shot to score an autographed Blues jersey signed by the captain, Braden Shen. It's the old Blues jersey, which is now the alternate jersey, and it is a beauty. Jamie's jersey giveaway is presented by St. Luke's, ranked number 3 in the nation for cardiovascular care by Modern Healthcare. Visit stlukes-stl.com.
It's an NBA weekend on ESPN. Tomorrow, Knicks and Rockets. Pre-game at 7. Tip-off at 7:30 p.m. Then Sunday, it's Warriors and Nuggets. Pre-game at 2. Tip-off at 2:30. Your home for the NBA is 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Billiken's Eye bounce back opportunity. Good morning. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Tonight, number 18 St. Louis University hopes to rebound from its road defeat at Rhode Island earlier this week. VCU hits Chaffetz Arena, though, riding a 10-game winning streak. SLU hasn't lost downtown since February 11th, 2025. More college hoops. Mizzou visits 20th-ranked Arkansas tomorrow afternoon. Illinois stays out west, battling UCLA. Your Sports Center update was powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Broadcasting live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone, I'm BK. We got Bradford Bruns back in the studio with us here today. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You see the big news for the Rams today, T-Bone?
I did. We're promoting our passing game coordinator to offensive coordinator, so he still gets to be in the room with Sean McVay.
Nathan Scheelhaus, Kansas City native. The passing game coordinator has been promoted to co-offensive coordinator. Along with one of the other Rams assistants, Dave Ragone.
You want me to translate what that means
Sure.
for the Rams there? So he didn't get a head coaching job, and they bumped his pay a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's about it. Because he basically was doing all the same stuff probably last year. So, yeah, he just got a pay raise. Good for him, though. You know, he earned that. You're not going to get a head coaching job. Might as well go to your employer and get a pay raise.
Reason I bring this up, congratulations to Nathan Scheelhaus and Dave Ragone for being your hottest candidates for a head coaching job in 2027. I don't know where they're going to be coaching, but they're going to be coaching somewhere because they had a cup of coffee and they learned under Sean McVay, which, man, I joke. It seems to be the number one pipeline to successful coaches in the NFL right now. If you spend any amount of time on the offensive staff, forget all of his defense coordinators. Stay away. It is poisoned. If you are on the offensive staff, though, with Sean McVay, odds are pretty high you're going to go on to become a pretty successful NFL head coach.
Yeah, you look at like Zach Taylor was one of these guys. Now, has he been successful? No, but I think he's been you and I disagree on this one. I think he's been a fine head coach for the Cincinnati Bengals. It's just been injuries that have killed him. Everybody's heard of Matt LaFleur. He served under offensive coordinator for a year with the Rams and eventually ended up getting a head coaching job with the Packers. Yeah, he's done a pretty good job. Kevin O'Connell, yeah, another one of those guys that has been in the system. Like Liam
Cohen.
I forgot about Cohen. Yeah, Liam Cohen as well. I think he left for Kentucky and then went to the NFL ranks. But yeah, he was another one as well. All these guys end up becoming head coaches somewhere. And
even in college, Jed Fish.
Yeah, and for the most part, it's worked out, right? I mean, there's not, to your point on the defensive side of the ball, those guys have had some stinkers when they've left. Looking at Morrison, looking at Staley. But, yeah, these guys that work with him on the offensive side of the ball, they end up typically doing pretty well. And what's impressive about McVay is he doesn't just stick to one offensive scheme, right? And I think this is where these coaches learn what's very important is you can't just go by what you think and then build the roster around that. Because it's twofold. Some years you don't have the roster capable of doing what you would prefer to do for your scheme. But second, the NFL changes, man. And we have seen that for like this year, for example. It feels like it's going more to the running game. So what did Sean McVay do this year? He went 3 tight ends for most of the season in the second half. So that's what he does such a great job of adjusting and trying to figure out what the next advantage is.
All right, so that's the news in the NFL. Wanted to ask you this, T-Bone, because next week we officially begin Combine Week. I know some people hate it, some people love it. I'm more on the love side than the hate side. I'm also a draft nerd, so I come by that honestly. Who's the team? Because that's kind of the unofficial kickoff of the NFL's offseason. Who's the team that you're most curious about this offseason? There's always somebody that ends up making some interesting moves. Like last year, the Patriots were that team. That they went out and they just had a ton of money to spend, and they added enough to where they were able to get to the Super Bowl eventually. Who's that team this offseason? Not that you think necessarily is going to make that big jump the way that the Patriots did, but that you're most curious on what the plan is for them.
I've got 2 that really stand out to me, and it's kind of funny because it's going in like opposite directions for them. The first one I would say is the Titans. And the reason I say that, they've got the rookie quarterback. You almost have to highlight these teams when they've got the rookie quarterback deal. They've got the most cap space available to them. I think they're going to be aggressive in trying to upgrade that roster around Cam Ward. There was enough to see out of him last year to go, why can't we be the New England Patriots of next year? And we talked about this at the time. It's not like the Patriots had this awesome cast around Drake May. He was just that good and able to elevate them around him. And then the other one that I said that I would say was going the opposite direction is the Eagles. What are they going to do this offseason? Brown's name is kind of out there in the trade rumor mill. Are they going to part ways with him? There's so much pressure that's going on for, like, this could be the end of this era of Eagles football because you've got Nick Sirianni, who, if let's be honest, they flail out again this year's probably fired. And you look at it, Jalen Hurts' contract is cuttable at the end of the season. It's possible we're looking at the end of that tandem of Sirianni and Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia this year. So I'm fascinated to see what they end up doing and if they're going to keep A.J. Brown. He's really the focal point on that, but I think his name's going to come up in conversations at the Combine.
What's the plan for the Jags to take the next step? They were a really good team this year, a genuinely good team. I think they could have made the Super Bowl had they beat the Bills in the first round of the playoffs this year. I do think, though, that they were still flawed. And I would like to see them continue to add to their roster, especially on the defensive side of the ball. What's the plan there? How do they take that next step? Right now, they are remarkably limited on what they have available to them in free agency. They're currently $13 million over the cap. And this is a little different than like when the Chiefs were 25 or whatever million dollars over the cap going into the offseason. There were obvious ways on, okay, they can do X, Y, and Z. They're fine. It's not really that way with the Jaguars. They don't have obvious levers to pull. Like, if you're just looking for cut candidates, the guys that can save them the most money via a cut this offseason are Ezra Cleveland, an offensive guard. He saves them $4 million by cutting. That's not anything of significance. Second most on their team is about $3.5 million. Guy by the name of Antonio Johnson. Like, there are just not the same cut candidates from this team as you would see from elsewhere. There's a couple restructures that they can do. Maybe they make a trade or two, but that's where I find them to be really interesting is what do they do? How do they restructure this thing? They've already said Travis Hunter's probably going to focus mostly on defense. That makes sense. They've got Jacoby Myers, they've got Brian Thomas Jr., and they've got Parker Washington on the offensive side of the ball. Kind of get in where you fit in, and there's not a whole lot of spots for Travis Hunter to get snaps on the offensive side. Is that a way that they reshape their roster? Do they consider this offseason trading one of Parker Washington, who really came on last season, or I would say more likely Brian Thomas Jr., former first-round pick that fell out of favor last season? Is he a guy that becomes a headliner in trade conversations this offseason, and they get a potential late first, early second round pick in return for him?
Yeah, I like that one because they're interesting. I don't trust their quarterback, but they kind of fall into the category of a couple of teams that you're looking at going, okay, how do you get back to that next step? The Jags would be one of those that I would throw out here. I would throw the Lions into this. They're $9 million over the cap. What is their plan? Is their window already closed? They've still got most of these guys under contract. The Packers, another one, they're only $1 million over the cap, but how are they going to take the next step with Jordan Love at quarterback? So those are a couple of interesting teams that will be kind of fun to monitor. I hadn't really thought of the Jacksonville Jaguars, mostly because I feel like they're in the AFC South and they're still an afterthought in my mind. But I would be curious because I do like what they've got at head coach with Liam Cohen. I like some of the weapons around them. The running backs entering free agency as well. I don't think you mentioned ETN there. He's going to be a free agent. They're interesting to see what they've got, and it helps that they're in a little bit of an easier division as well. I know the Texans are there. The Texans are also one of those teams that, like, I don't really know how much I trust them.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting offseason, and it all unofficially kicks off next week at the NFL Combine. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Bradford Bruns back in the studio for us today. We'll be joined by Mike McKenna, the former NHL goalie, coming up here in about 15 minutes. But next, it is a Friday, which means it's Ask Us Anything. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line or the YouTube chat at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, we'll get to those with Ask Us Anything next year on 101 ESPN.
You can now listen to 101 ESPN on demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company.
Hey, it's BK. It's time to get in on all of the action over on the Underdog app. I know the NFL season is over, but that doesn't mean Underdog has concluded. No, actually the opposite. They've got all of the action available for you, whether it is getting in on some of the Olympic action. You've got the Team USA game later on this afternoon. You could get in on that. You could get the VCU versus SLU game this evening as well. A big sold-out crowd at Chaifetz Arena. Maybe you want to get your plays in on the Billikens, or like me, maybe you want a Mizzou play for tomorrow. I've got Darius Acuff going higher than 30.5 points and assists combined. I've got Mark Mitchell lower than 3.5 assists against Arkansas on the road. And I like T.O. Barrett to have another good game higher than 14.5 points. Put those three plays together, about 10-1 odds over on the Underdog app, because I've got a 40% profit boost over there as well. You can get on the action today. Download the app if you haven't done so yet. Use our promo code BKO. You'll score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code BKO. Underdog. Make plays. Win money. Must be 18 or older. Present in Missouri. Terms do apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-MY-RESET or visit www.ncpgambling.org.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's Questions and Answers on 101 ESPN.
All right, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, go ahead and get them in right now. For the next 30 seconds, if you're trying to watch Canada versus Finland later tonight, go ahead and turn down your radio. An update for you on that game. Canada has tied it. 8 minutes to go in the third period. They are out shooting the Finns 31-14 with 8 minutes left to play. Remember yesterday we said, or 2 days ago, we said, this feels like one of those games where they're kind of hanging on by a thread. That's what it feels like right now for the Finns, T-Bone.
Yeah, and I said this right before Canada scored to you during the commercial break. Boy, doesn't this feel like it's going to go to overtime and Canada's going to win it 3-on-3? I'm not even sure they're going to need overtime right now. You can tell the Finns just don't have any answers right now for Team Canada. They've got them pinned in their zone on the forecheck and are just skating laps around them. It's just a matter of time before they put them away.
All right, we'll get to some of your questions now from Mahomes Longbody. Guys, do you hate the 3-on-3 overtime in elimination games in the Olympics as much as I do? I understand the need for it in a regular season game, but not an elimination game or a medal game. I do. Yeah, I think they should play 5-on-5 in overtime. At least give them another 10-minute period of that. And then if you can't determine a winner after 10 more minutes of extra time, then I would go to either a shootout or 3-on-3 at that point.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it either, just because there's so much open ice and anything can happen that can lead to a goal at 3-on-3 for overtime. I get why the NHL does it during the regular season, right? Don't want to put too much on these guys' bodies. I think you probably should play at least a period of overtime hockey. I would go a full 20 at 5-on-5, and if no one scores, then I would go to a shootout for these elimination games.
From the 618, guys, if you were picking in the top 5 in this year's NBA draft, what would you do with Darryn Peterson? Obviously an unreal talent, but the sit-outs and early exits are alarming. I would pick him in the top 5, but if you're in the top 2, I'd be really curious to see what the rest of the season looks like for him. It's possible this stuff's real. Maybe he does just legitimately have these nagging soft tissue issues. That's another issue in and of itself, but it's possible he does have stuff that he's dealing with. It seems strange the way that it's kind of all gone down. He suddenly isn't playing against Arizona. He asks out randomly in these games. I don't know. It feels like there's more to the story there. And if that's the case, I'm probably not taking him over AJ at BYU. I probably wouldn't take him over Boozer. I think he's maybe more talented than either, but I'd prefer to have one of those two guys. But starting with pick 3, I think the talent is too undeniable.
Yeah, I think you got to take him. If you think he's better than those top 2 guys, then I think you have to take him even in the top 2. But even if you don't, if you settle at the 3rd pick and he's there, I think you have to take him because the talent's just unbelievable. You can find a way to work through whether it is real, the soft tissue issues, or even if he kind of controls when he plays like Kawhi does, you'd rather have him than play against him.
From the 314, hey guys, do you think this year's Cardinals team could be like the Brewers of last year, given how young the Brewers were and how young the Cardinals are expected to be?
No chance. The reason for it for me, it's actually not even on the offensive side of the ball, because if you look at that Brewers lineup, it was mostly guys that were 10, 20% above league average. They did have a star in Yelich, but it was really the pitching that carried them. Like, I was looking at this the other day because I did have this intrusive thought of, man, well, okay, what did their guys do? They had 3 guys striking out 11 batters per 9 innings. And as much as I like that they're improving the stuff on the staff, it's not to that level yet. They've only got, like, one guy you might see this year that has that kind of strikeout stuff, and that is Doyle, who you may not see till September. That's the kind of stuff you have to have on your pitching staff and in your bullpen to be able to pull off this kind of a surprise. So, no, I don't think they're capable of it.
I don't think they are. I was also somebody, though, that didn't really believe in the Brewers last year. So I think the biggest thing for them is they had Freddie Peralta, and you don't. Like, I think you could have somebody that performs kind of similar to Quinn Priester. I don't think what he did was real. I think the 3.3 ERA by Priester was smoke and mirrors for the most part. I mean, Mizorowski was awesome, don't get me wrong, but he also really fell off a cliff in the second half of the season. Woodruff was great when healthy last year. I just think a lot of their guys overperformed what they actually are as starters, and that was in large part because they had an unbelievable defensive team. They had a very clear way that they won games. They won games with speed and defense. The following stolen base numbers were possible from their starting lineup: 24, 14, 18, 16, 21, 19, 16. Every single player on their team basically was a stolen base threat outside of their catcher and their first baseman. Do the Cardinals have that? Do the Cardinals have an ability to create a clear and coherent identity as a team that they're able to maximize this year? I don't know what that is right now. I didn't know that was going to be the case last year, though, for the Brewers. So I would bet against it. I don't think it's as crazy as it may sound today, though, because I also don't think that the Brewers were as good as their record was last year. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 618. Hey, guys, I'll ask you this. Do you really think a cap or a floor is the fix to what is the problem? Or, as on having too many RBers, hitting free agency at 30 versus 26 in other leagues seems to be the issue to me? I think that's part of a problem. These teams have so much club control over players that, you know, if you get to the big leagues at 24 years old, you're not like a late bloomer, but you get to free agency at 30, and then teams use that against you. They're like, yeah, well, you're 30 years old. Why would we pay you? I think there's a lot of issues beyond that, though. We'll talk about this a little bit more later in the show. I know yesterday Kyle Gibson was on with the Fast Lane. I love their chats, especially when it's an impromptu conversation where he just calls into the show. He's like, hey, I disagreed with this. Here's why. It's wonderful. It's great content. I do have a slight disagreement with him, though, on some of the stuff that's plaguing Major League Baseball right now. I think a lot of the time we use, hey, the quote-unquote parity that we've had over the years in Major League Baseball is a good thing. Maybe. I think the game is changing, though. I think over the last 5 years, we've seen a sharp change in the way that teams are operating. And so using information from 2005 or even 2015, I think it's outdated at this point. So that would be my counterpoint to some of the arguments.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the other thing, I do agree on the ARB issue because, like, you can get guys like O'Brien, for example. Riley O'Brien is, like, 31 or 32 years old. He may never experience free agency because he gets 6 years of club control and he was a late bloomer to get to the big leagues. Like, there are things that they could clean up in that regard. I agree. But I still am in favor of a cap because I agree on your point on parity. Things seem to have really shifted over the last 5 years. And it's one of those things to where if you don't address it now, before long, things could really get out of hand. It's the same as what happened, how quickly, look at what slug, baby slug, and swing and miss occurred. How quick it got to the game and boom, took off from there. And as you saw, I'm not saying this is apples to apples. It's kind of apples to oranges. Mo didn't adjust and the Cardinals fell way behind. That's why they're in a rebuild today. So, and the other thing, too, is like some of these organizations, like here in Pittsburgh, why would you ever have hope of potentially winning a title? It's getting harder for your smaller and mid-market teams to be able to capture a championship.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll be joined coming up in a little more than 5 minutes by Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie. He joins us each and every week on behalf of Macadoodles. From the 636, do you guys think Dalibor Dvorsky will get significant first-line minutes by the end of the season? I do not. I think if Robert Thomas is here, Robert Thomas is your number one center. full stop. So I expect him to be here. I don't think Dvorsky will get those chances.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Thomas is going to be here. I don't think he's getting traded at the deadline. So I think he's going to be the guy that centers your top line. He returned to the ice today at practice. I saw Luke Korak tweet out today. So it sounds like he might be a player when they get back. If that's the case, yeah, he's going to be on your top line center. If they deal him at the deadline, yeah, I think it's reasonable to expect Dvorsky to become your number one center, but I'm not expecting that.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, two radio nerds just disagreed with what a former Major League Baseball player said on what's best for the game. The Major League Baseball Players Association is now led by a lawyer. He's not a guy that played baseball. He's a guy that is a litigator. He is somebody that argues for a living. And so, like, yes, I disagree on this specific point with Gibson and with a lot of baseball players on what is best for the game.
And I would add this too. Gibson's not necessarily arguing what's best for the game.
He's arguing what's best for players.
Exactly. That's what
but
the
he's
players
also
are arguing
his
for.
argument yesterday though on the fast lane was this is also what's best for the game.
Yeah.
And that's just something like we can see the same information and come to different conclusions on it. I have a different conclusion. And yes, I'm a radio nerd. Like that's what I would consider myself. He's a former baseball player. I would never argue with Gibson on like what makes a curveball effective or what to throw in a 3-2 count against Fernando Tatis Jr. That is something I will defer to his knowledge on all of that stuff. But on something like this, I think we could go back and forth and have a pretty compelling conversation based upon our different experiences and our different viewpoints on it. So yeah, it's okay to disagree with people that have experiences in certain elements. But you should also be open to differing viewpoints on why they believe what they do. If I'm presented with information that changes my viewpoint on something, I'm happy to change my opinion on the matter. But on this one, I haven't seen that yet. Maybe I will. Maybe as we get closer to a potential lockout, we'll see information that sways me. Thus far, I have not.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I just, the thing with some players, and I didn't even necessarily say this is what Gibson was arguing, but there are some players across the sport that, let's just be honest, don't care about what's better for the game. What they care about is making sure that they get theirs. And that's their right as a player to try and negotiate from that front, right? I don't blame you if you want to still get your 30, 40, $50 million contracts if you're a top-end player. But that's where I think some of that can get lost, is some players are arguing not for the betterment of the game, but for what's best for the players, as they should.
Well, yeah, that's who they're arguing for. They're literally arguing on behalf of themselves. So I understand why they would argue that way. All right, alongside T-Bone and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In 15 minutes, we will talk a little bit about that baseball parity problem, if you think such a problem exists. We'll get into that in 15 minutes. Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie, joins us next here on 101 ESPN.
Love TMA? Then nominate yourself to be the Morning After Listener of the Month, and you could be selected and score a Form Energy prize pack. Sign up now at 101ESPN.com or TMASTL.com. The TMA Listener of the Month Club is presented by Form Energy. We do the work. blues talk? Check out the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Donnie Fandango, and Jeremy Rutherford on 101 ESPN. The guys bring you the latest news and nuggets on your St. Louis Blues.
The Last Minute Blues podcast is presented by Blue Note Roofing. Roofing, siding, and gutters. Your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofingSTL.com for free inspection. Watch or listen to the Last Minute Blues podcast now on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios, you're tuned into BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN. We're going between the pipes with former NHL goaltender Mike McKenna.
Between the Pipes is refreshed by Macadoodle Spirits, fine wine, beer, and cigars. Now open in Darryn Prairie.
We've got one hell of a finish coming in the next 2 minutes of this Canada versus Finland game.
Finish. I saw what you did there.
If you're wanting to watch this later for the next 30 seconds, go ahead and turn down your radio. About 2.5 minutes left. It's a tie game at 2. Finland just took a penalty, so there's a power play for Canada, and there will be about 30 seconds remaining after this power play has come to its conclusion. So one hell of an ending in this game. Shots are 36-16 in favor of Canada right now. Game, though, is tied at 2. That is the backdrop to our conversation that we are having right now with our friend, the former NHL goalie. He is Mike McKenna, joining us as he does each and every week on behalf of Macadoodles on the Callier and Thompson hotline. Mike, appreciate the time as always, man. You enjoying this action that we're seeing in the Olympics?
Well, I sure am. As Canada enters the zone here, kicks it out wide, back to the point. McCarr's got it, kicks it under the field.
Hey, we cannot do that. We cannot do any of that.
I actually got a funny story about that, but this is high drama right now. I mean, you got Canada on the power play with under a minute left in this game, and it's just they've been all over Finland. They've doubled them up on shots. UC Saros has been just incredible for the white and blue. Like, I mean, from a goalie perspective, we've seen some things in this tournament that are hard to describe. Italy's goaltender, who I can't remember, I feel bad that I don't have his name memorized, but the poor guy faced 53 shots in the first 36 minutes and then ended up hurting himself. And it was one of the best examples I've ever seen at goaltending. So I don't want to give anything away live on air, so I'm not going to do that on what I've just seen. But I had a moment when I was doing color commentary for the American Hockey League team, the Henderson Silver Knights, for Vegas. And what I just came on and did was some terrible play-by-play, right? Probably made everybody that's ever done it cringe. Our mics went dead when I was working for Vegas for this American League game. And the only mic that worked was mine. And I realized somebody's got to talk. and guys, if, you know, I've never done I've never done play-by-play. I've done color commentary. But doing play-by-play is just a different animal. And so
it's the hardest thing in broadcasting.
For the better part of 7 to 8 minutes on live television in Las Vegas, here I was out there with my pants down trying my best to do as good as I could. You know what I mean? I was just in the wind, terrible. But kind of fun to do it. People knew that it was a situation I wasn't going to win in. But we might be looking at a situation here where somebody might win this game here, fellas. This is tight. Canada, Finland, 3.
It is, and once again, spoiler alert, so anybody that wants to watch this later, go ahead and turn down your radio for about 30 seconds. Canada just took the lead 3-2 with about 35 seconds to go. Nathan McKinnon with a goal as the power play came to its conclusion. So about 35 seconds left here for Finland. It looks like they're reviewing this goal, though, so we'll see if it ultimately is able to count. Mike, as we continue along here, we're about a week away from the Blues continuing their regular season, getting back on the ice. Looks like Robert Thomas was able to go out there and skate today. We talked with JR yesterday, and he mentioned, hey, you know, the rest of the way, I think they might stick with Pavel Buchnevich as a center. That was once upon a time their plan with Buch, and it sounds like it might be something they try again with Schenn potentially kicking over to the wing. How do you feel about that plan for the rest of the regular season, if it is indeed the case?
Well, I'm okay with it because I think it gives a different look to what Buchnevich can do, and it's in a no-pressure situation. I mean, if the Blues end up making the Stanley Cup playoffs, it'd be a minor miracle at this point. We all know that's probably out of reach. And there's been a thought process that Buchnevich, the way he skates, he's very direct. He can really scoot that. If you put him down the middle, maybe there can be success. And, you know, there was a brief flirtation with that before that didn't work great. But honestly, I think we started the season off, I did at least. I still think Brayden Schenn at this point in his career is better served on his wing, crashing, banging. And, you know, if you get Suter back in the lineup, which he's healthy again, you've got Dvorsky, who's now, you know, looking like a top-line player. Do you kick him over to the wing? I think this is just going to give Buchnevich a chance to grow a little bit as a player, and it lets you know what you have for next season so that he wouldn't just be considered a one-dimensional winger. You know, maybe this becomes a solution where now you've got, maybe you go Thomas, Buchnevich, Dvorsky. You know, maybe that's your top three. Is that a poor lineup for the Blues? It's a young one, but I don't think that's bad. You're still trying to find a one or two in that mix, but look at the great teams in the last couple of years. They've all been strong at center through top four. You know, I keep going back to the Golden Knights when I covered that team, and man, they had three pivots right down the middle. They had William Karlsson, a guy who had scored 40 goals in a season before, who was playing third-line center for that team. So it shows you the importance of it, and if they can get some found change out of Buchnevich and make him more versatile, and you know, if Brayden Schenn's still sticking around too, I think that's a good play.
Mike, one guy that also is back on the ice for the St. Louis Blues at practice this week is Dylan Holloway, who had missed the last handful of games before going into the Olympic break. What do you want to see from him in the second half of the season? It's been a bit of a down year for him from a production standpoint, but part of that could be coming back from injury to start the year and then dealing with the injuries this year. What do you want to see from him in the second half of the season?
I'd like to see Dylan Holloway play every game. That's really all it comes down to. The injuries have been tough on him, and it's not just having problems with your ankle is hard to play through. It's hard to come off of it. It's hard to find chemistry. It's hard to find where you fit in the lineup. And, you know, the Blues have 25 games left here. If he could play them all, that would be fantastic. So I'm not as concerned about output as I am just seeing him get through the pace of the remainder of the season, because it's still going to be a condensed schedule when we come back, guys. There couldn't be a better time for somebody to have a chance to be able to recoup and recover. When Holloway was in the lineup, even at the beginning of the year, kind of the element that was missing to me was his puck possession game. You think about last season when he was just dominating games, the puck never seemed to come off the stick. And early this year, that didn't seem to be the case. And is it a confidence thing? Is it coming back off an injury? I think it's a little bit of that, especially an ankle injury, because if you're going to be as nimble on your skates as Holloway, like, he changes directions as well as anybody in the league with possession on the puck. And if you're not feeling healthy enough to do that, it's hard. So I think those are the two things I'm looking for more so than just scoring output.
We're talking to Mike McKenna here on 101 ESPN. Mike, Dalibor Dvorsky has been showing out at the Olympics this year, breaking the record for the most points ever by a rookie in the Olympics. It seems as though this has kind of been a continuation of what we had seen right before the Olympic break, where he started playing with more and more confidence. Are you seeing a young player come into his own at this point? Yeah,
and we're seeing him for a team that it needs him. Like, no way around it. You know, this club for Slovakia is not loaded, but they're a great team. And how can you quantify that? You do it with the talent you have, but also who's really excelling. How many NHL players does he have surrounding him on that club right now as a forward unit? Not as many as there was even 7-8 years ago. Thomas Tatar's there. He's not even in the league anymore. You know, Yuri Slafkovsky's there. There's somebody you can give the puck to. But I look at not just chewing minutes or putting up points. He's commanding a lot of space on the ice, and he's doing it by heads-up hockey and putting the pucks into areas that not just for himself, but for teammates that they need to go. And you know a player is really starting to come into their own when they're making the other team nervous. And with Dvorsky, I can see that because when you go to a tournament like this and you start putting up the points he is, you're the focus. Slafkovsky and Dvorsky, they are the focus when teams go to play against Slovakia. And for him to continue to produce and for him to continue to find ways to find open teammates when all eyes are on him, all pressure is on him, I'm super impressed by that because when you take it back to the NHL, time and space just goes away even more. You know, Olympics can be a different animal with the disparity in teams. NHL, time, space, it gets smaller and smaller. If Dvorsky's reading this well, creating space, making people nervous like we've seen in this tournament, it's going to be a continuation for the Blues. We can only expect it to be, you know, a 2 or 3% uptick, though, not a 20 or 30. Let's be realistic here. Let him keep growing because what we're seeing is really, really good.
Mike, I did want to ask you this. I think it was Jim Montgomery I heard yesterday bringing this up on the Fast Lane of, like, when he's watching the Olympics, he's not necessarily honing in on, like, his guys that are at the Olympics. So he is watching them, but it's more of, like, trying to learn something that what these teams are doing that maybe he can bring from a head coaching perspective to the ice. So this might sound like a bit of a dumb question since I'm looking at Canada with this elite lineup. But when you watch these teams at the Olympics, what are some of the smaller details that they are doing well that you don't see the St. Louis Blues do when they take the ice as a team?
Well, they got a pretty killer team. I mean, you can reminisce back to other moments in history where Canada's team it's always been good, but I don't know if it's ever been this loaded. I tell you what they've done really well is players have not just taken roles, but embraced roles. And players who are used to scoring a lot, Brad Marchand, Bennett, Wilson, like that line is unbelievable. And that's not even close to the top line for Canada. You know, that's your grind line, Brad Marchand, Bennett, Wilson. And they've taken that role, scoring secondary. They know what they need to do. You cannot get on the ice against that line and do what you want to do. You can't do it against that line as an opposing team. And with the Blues, I mean, we haven't seen that. We haven't seen it 4 lines deep for the Blues. At times we've seen one line. We've seen the middle really be compressed. You know, the top 2 lines haven't been the ones that have always been going. So taking your role and running with it, but also having the confidence to do it, that part's been missing for the Blues with the injuries and the flux. It's not just the skill. And that's where I think Marchand, Bennett, Wilson, man, you could take that with the Blues and go Shen on the left wing and take Holloway or Neighbors or whoever you want to put out there together and have something similar, but it might be your third line and not your first.
Mike, a week from today, we will be reacting to what took place on the ice as the Blues get back at it against the Seattle Kraken next Thursday night. Before we get there, though, we got to talk to you about what's available right now as people walk through the doors. I heard a few people walking through just a little bit ago out there at Macadoodles. What can people expect out there this weekend?
Well, this is a live situation. You know, I heard the back door ringing. That means cool stuff's coming in. We got some Yellowstone 2024 limited edition 10-year bourbon that showed up. One of the cool ones that's coming in, we got Doc Holliday Huckleberry, which is really on the nose. I mean, like, I'm your Huckleberry. You guys know that from the movie. So that came in the door today. Plenty of whiskey hanging around the joint. Wine is still going strong with some really good sales this month, I should say, as well. We've got barrel proof Elijah Craig at $54.97 this month. Like, guys, that's an absolute steal. I've got Don Fulano Blanco Tequila at $43.97. Those are basically a cost, man. You're not going to get those quality of products anywhere else. We just had an unbelievable event last night with Jay Rieger and company out of Kansas City. Showed off their bourbon, their Kansas City whiskey. We've got some great events coming up like that in our building to keep an eye on. So there's always deals. There's always fun stuff. There's always things out to try on the bar. We're ready to come see everybody just north of the Page Extension at Bryan and Feisey Road.
He's Mike McKenna. Joins us each and every week on behalf of Macadoodles. Go see them out there. Be sure to listen to us each and every week here on BK and Ferrario as well. Mike, appreciate the time as always, man. We'll talk with you again next week.
Absolutely. Go USA, please.
That's right. For those that are not watching right now, if you want to watch later, again, one more time, go ahead and turn down your radio for the next 30 seconds. But we do have an update as Canada has officially won 3-2 against Finland. One hell of a final couple of minutes in that game. McKinnon with the game-winning goal came down to Finland actually did put one on net right at the end of the game. Bennington able to make what was a pretty easy save, routine save for him, but made for an interesting finish nonetheless. I believe it's 2 hours from now. Team USA will be out on the ice for the semifinal game as well.
They will take the ice, I believe 2:10 is when the puck drop is for that game against Dalibor Dvorsky in Slovakia.
Should be a hell of a lot of fun. This one was close. I would expect nothing less in the next game as well. All of these games are coming down to the absolute wire in the Olympics. Couldn't ask for a whole heck of a lot more. Coming up in 15 minutes, who's the best college football quarterback of the last 25 years? I'm going to go out on a limb and say Bradford probably has some thoughts on that. We'll get into one list that came out earlier today, give you our thoughts on that in 15 minutes. But next, does baseball actually have a parity problem, or is it a figment of our imagination? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
It's time for another moment in Blues history.
On this day back in 1994, the Blues would beat the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim 4-1. Kevin Miller would score first in the first period, then Craig Janney in the second period on the power play. Former Blue Terry Yake would score the only goal for the Mighty Ducks, but then Prokhorov and Brennan Shanahan would cap off the 4-goal win. And picking up the win for the Blues, Curtis Joseph stopping 42 of 43 shots.
This date in Blues history is powered by Classic Air Care.
Make your life more comfortable for all your HVAC, plumbing, and electrical needs. ClassicAirCare.com.
ESPN has your shot to score a 4-pack of tickets to Monster Energy AMA Supercross, returning to the Dome at America's Center Saturday, April 4th. Watch the premier riders in the world as well as the rising stars as they put it all on the line for the coveted title of Supercross Champion. Experience the intense racing of the world's most demanding sport live at Monster Energy AMA Supercross.
Get all the info and register to win a free 4-pack of tickets now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app.
BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center, presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Final 4 teams in the NFL, final 4 teams in Major League Baseball over the last 5 years. Very similar how many new teams are in it. I won't bore you with all the numbers. Division leaders, sure. Major League Baseball has 53% new teams that make the playoffs. The NFL only has 49%. So again, very similar. Playoff droughts, almost identical. Divisional droughts, a little bit longer in Major League Baseball, but not by much.
That was Anthony Stolzer yesterday talking about how Major League Baseball maybe doesn't have the parity problem that has been portrayed. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We're broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center. It's 12:21. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. I'm not here to argue any of Stolzer's facts. Those are true. Like, if you're just looking at, hey, the last 15, 20 years in Major League Baseball, the turnover rate has been pretty similar to the other sports. And by those metrics, they don't have a parity problem. In fact, it's one of the harder sports to repeat. That being said, I think things are shifting. I think what happens is when you look back over the last 20 plus years, you're looking at what is effectively a different sport. Because in 2026, the dynamics have changed. There isn't the same RSN deal for a team like the Cardinals that existed even 5 years ago, much less 20 years ago. The disparity in how you acquire your talent is different today than it was 20 years ago. Think about a guy like Shohei Ohtani and what he represents not only for your team today, but also what he represents in terms of the pull for other Japanese players to come play with him. That didn't exist 20 years ago. You didn't have the same pool of players coming over on a seemingly annual basis from Japan. You'd have a few here and there, don't get me wrong. But now it's like, man, you're getting legit number one starters coming over seemingly every offseason. You're getting at least one big-time position player coming over every offseason from Japan. That's different. And those guys aren't coming through your system as 16-year-olds the way that they would from the Dominican or Venezuela or Colombia or wherever. They're immediately contributing towards winning at the major league level. And the teams that have the most access to those players are the bigger markets. So that's a change in the system and the structure of how you can win today compared to 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. Baseball has also changed the ability to tank compared to what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. You look at some of the smaller market teams that had a lot of success, or the non-traditional baseball markets, such as Houston, for example. How'd they do it? It ain't that hard to figure out, ladies and gentlemen. They were really bad for a long time. They got the access to the great players at the top of the draft, and then they won with them. Hell, even Washington, that was the case. Now, I know Bryce Harper wasn't there, but they had the ability to win because of their years of being really, really bad. So I understand the argument. I get it. And if you're looking at it through a longer lens, yes, Major League Baseball is fine. It's healthy as any other sport. If you're looking at it through the lens of what has taken place in the last 5 years and the changing dynamics of how the sport is structured, not only is this sport not healthy, in my opinion, this sport needs sweeping changes in order to make teams like the St. Louis Cardinals, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Cleveland Guardians able to contend with teams like the Toronto Blue Jays, the New York Mets, and the LA Dodgers.
Yeah, I agree because though, yes, the numbers are similar, and Stoltz mentioned it there over the last 5 years, and even if you go further back as well, you can see there's a change that is bubbling on the surface right now. And you can go back to even like 2022. I don't think it was as big a deal because we hadn't seen the TV deals collapse in on itself yet. We didn't really see that happen to 23, 24 is when that occurred. So if this was still the case, and we can't predict this, and we'll see, I'm sure baseball will ultimately not settle on a cap, and this will be a conversation for the next CBA once again. But I would bet right now today that within 10 years that you're going to see that the parity is not going to be as strong in Major League Baseball as it is in these other sports because of what you are talking about, because all these coast teams and these big markets have their own TV deals. They can spend unbelievable amounts of money. And meanwhile, here in the Midwest, really, the central divisions, these small market, mid-market teams, they don't know where their money's coming from right now. Their RSN situation completely collapsed in on itself. So they don't have the allure to go out there and, spend money, and let alone the other problem about this all is more of, and I saw someone on the text line text this in, and this came from the 314, baseball right now has a singular problem is this: the same 5 to 10 franchise will never win a World Series. And that's the way it feels, right? It's the feeling of these low market teams aren't going to be able to go out there and sign people. And I think this is where some of this argument gets lost. The Chiefs are a small market team in Kansas City. And in baseball, at times we've seen that they are an organization that will be willing to keep their guys like Bobby Witt. Like in Pittsburgh, for example, they're not willing to keep any of their people.
Yep.
Right now, the players would argue that they should be spending that money, and they're actually just holding on to it. But I think you need to force those teams to spend that money, because I will agree with the players. The owners have the money to spend. But what you need to do to really make the sport healthier is force those owners to spend those dollars. So I'm looking at the Pittsburgh Pirates. I'm looking at those teams down in Florida and Tampa Bay, in Miami. rather than having them just sit on that cash, you need to force them to spend these dollars and give these fan bases some hope right now of, hey, we have a Paul Skeens here in Pittsburgh, and we're going to be able to keep him. Right now, Paul Skeens is already dreaming about being a New York Yankee, according to some reports. So I think that is the biggest problem that baseball has, and I do think the parity issue is going to get worse because of everything that is starting to surface and as it's bubbling through, and now you've got these TV deals that have completely collapsed in on themselves. There was a report out yesterday from Travis Shawchick that the Twins basically got about $5 million in revenue from subscriptions that they sold last year. That's nothing compared to what the money was they were getting on the RSN deal when they had that going for them.
Yeah, it just changed. The disparity in these these payrolls is more significant than it used to be. Somebody on the text line, I've seen this brought up a number of different times, but this is just one example of it from the 314. BK, what metrics are you looking at to support your argument, though? Are you talking about payroll disparity? Because show me today what is similar to pre-free agency when the Yankees, for example, had more farm teams than MLB teams in existence and the financial dominance. So I think a lot of people go back to, okay, this is an ebb and a flow. This is an era in Major League Baseball, just like the Yankees' dominance in the 2000s wasn't signifying that, hey, this is going to be what the next 25 years was. It's just an era of Major League Baseball where they dominated. The difference is, if you go back to, I just picked up a random year, 2000, right? So 25 years ago. The year 2000, the Yankees' payroll was $92 million. They were number one in Major League Baseball. They led the league. To use the median payroll that year, the average payroll, it was $61 million by the Detroit Tigers. That's 66% of what the Yankees were paying for their payroll. So they were about 2/3 of where New York was at. That's the middle of Major League Baseball. The Oakland Athletics that year were 25th. That was the team that was starting the Moneyball stuff. They were at 33% of the New York Yankees payroll. To put that in perspective, the Mets today have the highest payroll in Major League Baseball. They're at $357 million. So if that's not already showing you how much baseball has changed from $92 million to $357 million being the leading payroll, we can continue. The Angels now are the middle of Major League Baseball when it comes to payroll. They're at $177 million. That means they are almost exactly 50% of what the top payroll is in Major League Baseball. Again, going back to 2000, it was 66% of what the top payroll is. The gap has widened between the middle class and the top of Major League Baseball. You want to continue from there. 25th in Major League Baseball, so the bottom of the league, is the Washington Nationals this year. They're at about $1.35 on their payroll. That's 25% of what the top payroll is in Major League Baseball. It used to be 33%. The gap is widening. That's going to get worse, not better, with the RSN situations. That's not me caping for owners. That's real. If you have less income, you can spend less. If I today lose this job or suddenly I have fewer endorsements from this job, well, guess what? I have less money that is discretionary income for me to then go spend. I can't go on the same vacations, right? I can't spend the same amount on dinners. We have to tighten our belt a little bit at home on what we're spending. The same thing is true for Major League Baseball teams. Now, I think sometimes owners are cheap. So this is not me saying like all of these owners are being truthful when it comes to what they have available to spend. I think many of them could spend more. The Cubs, for example, I think they're crying poor when it's nonsense. They have their own TV network. They're doing just fine.
They've got their own version of a ballpark village, basically, there at Wrigley Field.
But for a lot of these teams, I don't think it's them just lying to your face. I think for some of these teams, it's true. They cannot compete with the Dodgers or the Mets or the Yankees or the Blue Jays. They just don't have the financial security to do so. And baseball needs to do something to make you as a fan, if you're a fan of the Guardians or the Cardinals or the Pirates or the Brewers, feel as though you have a chance. That's the difference between baseball and football right now, is if you're a Titans fan today in Nashville, Tennessee, you believe in the future of your organization because you got a really bad team that got the top pick and you were able to acquire Cam Ward. And guess what? You can keep him. If you want to keep him for his entire career as a Titans fan, you can buy the jersey today, and he'll be there 15 years from now if he turns out to be a good player. The Chiefs did that with Patrick Mahomes. The Buffalo Bills did that with Josh Allen. So we're talking about Buffalo and Kansas City keeping those guys. Indianapolis was able to keep Peyton Manning for the majority of his career until they decided it was time to move on. That's the difference. Can a team in Major League Baseball keep its star? Maybe. You keep two of them, though? That's where it gets really dicey. Eventually, you have to choose. And I think that's something that baseball has a really hard time with right now. I don't know how they fix this. Like, I'm telling you all of the problems with the sport. How do they fix this? I would recommend going to a cap and a floor system, but I don't think baseball players are going to agree to that. They're just in total opposition to it, and I don't even know if the owners will agree to what exactly that's going to be. And then you have to get into what the structure is of all of that, how you work to that place, how long it's going to take to actually implement such a system, because you've got 10-year contracts that are on the books for some of these teams. All of that is where the devil's in the details, and it's nearly impossible to work out. But presenting the problem, yeah, I think it exists, and I think to suggest otherwise is not really looking at the facts of what's taken place over the last 5 years.
And I think what you said there about the owners is the one where I highlight and say, this is why I don't think we're going to see this get settled. If all the owners were on the same page of, boy, we could really use a cap, and all the top dollar teams like Steve Cohen and the Mets and the Dodgers ownership group were like, yeah, boy, we would love to save some money and not spend it and have a ceiling on what we do spend, then I think the owners could just hold this thing out. I think they eat a season. There was a report today that they're already kind of putting $2 billion aside from John Heyman to help them kind of get ready for the potential of a lockout that will last a while. They could wait out the players, because once you get the players that are on those middle tier contracts or these rookies that are in the pre-arbitration process, like a Michael McGreevy, for example, those guys can't be waiting for a long time if this holdout went out a long time. So eventually I think the owners could kind of just strangle the players essentially to a point to where they would have to cave on a cap. The problem is that I don't think the owners are going to agree on what they need to do. I don't think your top dollar owners want to get rid of the advantage that they have. Why would you? I mean, you're seeing this across, even it's not apples to apples, but look at college football. Do you really think LSU wants to cap their spending in the SEC so they can help out a program like Missouri or Mississippi State? No, they don't want to. And I don't think that's going to be the case here for these teams, because it just makes them more valuable as well. The more they do winning, and the better they are as a brand to kind of sell for advertising, which means the more money that they pull in, that these guys can eventually sell the team for more dollars. So I don't see the owners ever agreeing to all of this stuff. It's why I think what's going to happen in this lockout is you're going to see a bunch of reports of the owners fighting. You'll probably start to hear a little bit of some fighting internally for the players if this thing goes long. But I think the owners eventually are going to say, oh, we can't get a cap because we can't agree amongst ourselves, and we end up basically in the same situation.
We got this from Breakfast Ball over on the text line. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Guys, how were the Cardinals able to do this in the early 2000s then, when they brought in Larry Walker, Jim Edmonds, and Reggie Sanders? The structure has changed. The streams of revenue for a team like the Cardinals is different today than it was back then. The RSN deal that existed in the early 2000s and up until really the last 5 years, it allowed the Cardinals to operate differently. They were getting, I think it was like $70 million is what they were anticipating. And I think this year they're expecting like 25 or something like that. It's somewhere in that range. That's a $50 million gap, guys. Think about if in your household you had a drop in 60% of your income in some revenue stream, whatever that may be, whether it's your primary source of income or something else. It's going to put a dent in what you're able to do. Now, they've also got other stuff that are self-imposed constraints, or it's because of what they did. They screwed up the on-field product, which has led to a drop in attendance. That's a revenue stream that's on them. Like they messed that up, and by being so far behind the times on so many different areas, fans are no longer coming in droves the way that they once did. And that's leading to a drop in revenue on that side of things. But and the RSN deal, that is by no doing of their own. That is just the way of the world, what's taking place right now, and that's changed. And in the early 2000s, they were able to operate differently. And a lot of teams were able to operate differently than where they're at today. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll dive into the junk drawer. This is not a conversation that's going away. I can promise you we'll spend plenty of time on this over the coming days and weeks and months and potentially years. But coming up next, who's the best college football quarterback that you've seen over the last 25 years? I'll tell you what ESPN.com's Bill Connolly had to say. We'll give you our thoughts on it next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
ESPN has your shot to score a pair of passes to the 2026 State Farm Missouri Valley Conference Men's Basketball Tournament, hitting the court at Enterprise Center March 5th through the 8th. March begins here with the Arch Madness of the annual MVC Tournament, featuring an 11-team field. All session and single session tickets are on sale now.
Get all the details and enter to win free tickets for Arch Madness now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
First semifinal goes down to wire. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. 3 out of 4 quarterfinal matchups in the Olympic men's hockey tournament went to OT. Today's Milan slate delivering similar drama. Minutes ago, Canada defeated Finland 3-2. Nathan McKinnon's ultimate one-timer came with 35 seconds remaining. Jordan Binnington had 15 saves. Team USA will face Dalibor Dvorsky and Slovakia at 2:10 p.m. MLB spring training officially underway. Yankees-Orioles scoreless so far. Tomorrow brings Cardinals-Nationals action from Roger Dean Stadium. This Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN, broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center, presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Bradford, I'm BK. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Some big news in baseball, T-Bone. The Baltimore Orioles have acquired Brian Ramos from the Cardinals. Oh. Brian Ramos was previously traded from the White Sox to Baltimore. Then he was designated for assignment by the Orioles. The Cardinals claimed him. Now he's going back to the Baltimore Orioles.
What are we getting in return?
I don't know. Probably nothing.
Oh,
nothing
man.
of significance.
Boy, when you first said that, because there was news one of their, first baseman today has an issue in his elbow. Was it his elbow? Is that right?
UCL.
UCL. And he was going to miss like a month. When you said trade news, I'm thinking, boy, who's our first baseman that we're trading? I'll be honest, I forgot we DFA'd Torres a day or two ago. So, okay, that makes sense.
There you go. Other news from Andy Reid today, who's speaking with the media. Apparently he had some kind of a knee surgery, so he's not going to talk to the media at the NFL Combine like he normally does. So he did his interview today. He was asked about Travis Kelce, said there's communication there. That's the main thing. That means people want to move forward. I think that's where Trav is at. In other words, Travis Kelce probably going to be back with the Chiefs this year. Also on Tyreek Hill, quote, there's nothing happening there, end quote. Said he's not even sure if he's healthy yet, so I wouldn't expect anything to happen in the immediate future on Tyreek Hill. I would also say I don't think anything's going to happen with anybody in the immediate future for Tyreek Hill because of a surgery that still has to take place. He'll probably be waiting a little while before he signs with the team. So a couple pieces of news to pass along there. Earlier today, I was reading over on ESPN.com, and Bill Connolly, I think, is one of the best writers in the country when it comes to college football. He's as good as it gets. And he does an annual piece on the top 100 college football quarterbacks of the last 20-plus years. He did this today, and I will continue to disagree with his number one quarterback of the last 25 years. He has Baker Mayfield at number one. The rest of his top five, Cam Newton at Auburn, Vince Young at Texas, Tim Tebow at Florida, and Joe Burrow for his season at Ohio State / LSU, really known for his time at LSU. Bradford, I know you've got some thoughts on this list, and I promise we'll get to you here in just a moment. But T-Bone, your viewing of college football is slightly later than mine. So I'm curious for you, with what you remember of college football, who's the best quarterback that you have seen?
So I've gone back and forth on which one I think is the best college quarterback that I have seen. And I think I've settled in on Johnny Manziel as the one for me.
Wow, really?
Because
okay.
I don't remember much of, like, I remember Trevor Lawrence, and I remember he was very good. But I just remember also the aura that came with Johnny Manziel, right? Like, Lawrence wasn't the flashy guy outside the great hair that he had, and eventually a future number one overall pick. Scrolling through this list, like some of these guys, like Robert Griffin III, I remember him on the video game cover. Don't remember much of his career. Same with Mariota. Kind of remember his career. Don't remember a lot of it. And that's the problem for me with a lot of these guys that are up here. And that's not to take away anything from them. But I think he's the best one that I have seen when you combine both with what he did on the field and also when you have this conversation, you got to talk about how they were remembered at in that time. I mean, he won a Heisman Trophy as a freshman, and he was the face of college football for 2-3 years. So for me, it's Johnny Manziel and what he did for the game. A close second is the one that I've gone back and forth between these two is Joe Burrow. I mean, it was unbelievable what he did at LSU that year where they won the title. And I get it. He was thrown with a cast of NFL studs. What he did should not be done, even with that talent and in that conference in the SEC.
Mine goes a little further back because those guys are amazing. Don't get me wrong. Both of them I would have, honestly, probably over what Baker Mayfield's did. But for me, the best quarterback that I've seen, the most dominant college football player that I've seen in any individual season was Cam Newton. What Cam Newton did in that 1 year at Auburn was special. I mean, you go back and you look at the team that he was on, we thought at the time it was pretty damn talented. You now look back on it, it was pretty much Cam Newton and the guys. It was just him dominating college football, doing a little bit of everything. It was unreal what he was able to put together that season. So Cam, for me, is the single most dominant college football player that I've seen in any individual season. If you're going to do, though, dominance over a stretch of time, so you expand it beyond just that one individual season, for me, it's Tebow. I mean, he was just unreal. He was basically like a 80% version of Cam Newton from that 2010 season, but over the course of multiple years while he was at Florida. And those teams were the dominant team of their era. So if you're expanding it and you're talking about both longevity and the peak performance, I would say Tim Tebow, for me, is the best quarterback that I've seen in the last 20-plus years. Bradford, do you have one guy that immediately stands out to you atop this list?
BK, I absolutely do. Baker Mayfield is a choice, certainly not mine. For me, guys, honestly, it is not particularly close. If anybody's been listening over the past few years, heck, go back to a decade or so ago, everybody understands the allegiance that this guy displays toward one Tim Tebow, and rightfully so. You want to basically talk about one season in a vacuum. How about expanding, broadening the scope scope. I'll tell you a little bit about what Tebow was able to orchestrate in Gainesville for 4 seasons. Between 06 and 09, guys, he piled up 145 total touchdowns. And 57 of those came on the ground. For context, that's more than Herschel Walker had during his entire collegiate career. And I am not throwing any shade whatsoever at the singular efforts. I'm talking about single campaigns only from Joe Burrow, from Cam Newton, because when you take everything into consideration, Cam only had 14 games at the FBS level. Heck, even Vince Young, he went 30-2 as a starter, but he also became the first guy to throw for 3,000 and rush for 1,000 in a single season. But Tim Tebow not only transcended the sport, he transcended sports, period. He was the guy to talk about before Manziel and for performance-related reasons alone. The leadership, the narrative, all those traits that you assign to the college game in particular, there was simply nobody better because he was a premium passer as well. I'm not saying he was slinging it up and down the field there at Gator Stadium, but he had an offensive efficiency mark at the position, guys, that actually was still standing in the SEC up until a few years ago as well. For me, it is Tebow. It's not even close.
All right, I'm excited.
And I am.
A few other guys that I wanted to mention here. Number 14 on the list is Fernando Mendoza.
Feels high to me.
He makes his debut at number 14. I agree with you. I don't think Fernando Mendoza this year was more dominant than Sam Bradford back when he was playing, or Matt Leinart, or even Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels in his 2023 season.
Talk about a team of it's Jaden Daniels and the boys.
Yeah. I mean, he had some good receivers. Don't get me wrong, but I would rather have that year than what we saw this year. I know it's Indiana, so the story kind of plays into that, but I just didn't think Fernando Mendoza was as dominant as what we saw from Jaden Daniels. I would put him more in the CJ Stroud, Tua Tagovailoa, Dylan Gabriel range. That feels more like in the 20 to 25 range of the best seasons that we've seen in recent memory. As I go further down this list on just, hey, that's a guy that I remember that I enjoyed watching. Let's throw a few of these out here, and T-Bone, I don't know how many of them you're going to be familiar with.
This will be a fun game.
Did you watch Pat White at West Virginia?
I'll be honest, I don't recognize the name.
Yeah, buddy.
Bradford, you remember.
Yes, I do. Well before Tavon, yeah.
There was a time in college football where you would see a guy playing at the quarterback position and you'd say, he has no chance to be an NFL quarterback. But, my God, is he a dominant college football quarterback? That was Pat White. Pat White was one of those dudes that was it him and Steve Slayton? Was that the running back that was at West Virginia at the time, Bradford?
I think so. He was 35-8 as a starter. They went to the Fiesta Bowl, I think, the Mountaineers with White.
Yeah, those teams were fun as hell to watch. So that's one that was on this list that I was like, yeah, that was a dude that I loved watching. Chase Daniel comes in at number 42. If you're a Mizzou fan, I mean, come on. That was the guy that got me into watching Mizzou football. Colt Brennan from Hawaii. You remember him, Bradford? The guy that broke all of the passing records back in the day?
Little bit. They had some guys at that university who could go up and down the field. Yeah.
Byron Leftwich. You remember the drive where he was carried by his teammates?
We are Marshall.
That's right.
See, I don't recognize either of those names.
Really aging
Bradford,
myself.
you remember Denard Robinson?
Oh, of course, Michigan man.
Nope.
No, we're going through.
What year was he in Michigan? Because I'm seeing this Marshall guy. It was 2002. I was in diapers.
Yeah, that was more like 2010, 2012, something like that. Other guys that are on this list that were just fun as hell to watch. Joey Harrington. I was positive he was going to be a good NFL quarterback. There was no chance that guy was going to fail, and yeah, he did.
No recognition of that one either.
Really? Joey Harrington?
No, I don't think so.
With the Detroit Lions?
Oregon Ducks.
He was like the first of the Oregon quarterbacks. He kind of put Oregon on the map, honestly.
When did he play? I can't even
Early
find
2000s. I think he was maybe before you were born even.
BK was...
yeah, no wonder I didn't know that.
Was he not a number 2 overall pick off of the top of my head?
He was
right?
top 5 pick.
He was.
He was a big time player back in the day. Just got a text. Colt McCoy was awesome. I loved Colt McCoy.
I remember McCoy, but I don't remember. He's kind of in Tebow range for me to where I remember kind of watching him play, but I was let's see, 6, anywhere between probably 6 and 10.
Yeah.
You don't really realize what you're watching at the time, and I can't even say here's the definitive moment I remember. I can remember Manziel making that weird play against Alabama, right, where he's running for his life and he throws it off balance into the end zone. Those are, once you get to about Manziel and beyond, is about the time that I can remember.
Somebody on the text line said, guys, I can't believe that you haven't mentioned Michael Vick yet. In the rankings, they said you were evaluated based upon what you did in the 2000s, which is why Michael Vick is not on the list, despite that the fact that he did play in 99 and 2000. So it's beyond the 99 season. So that's why he is not a part of this list. But if he was part of it, my God, Michael Vick was a cheat code, man. He was unbelievable. He was my favorite player in the NFL back in the day. I went to a Chiefs versus Falcons game way back when I was I think it was 2003. I think the Chiefs ran for 7 rushing touchdowns in the game, if I remember correctly.
You're wearing your Vick jersey?
I went because I was a Chiefs fan, but I wanted to see Michael Vick play in that game. So, yeah, that was he was one of my favorites way back in the day as well. I love the Wayback Machine. Talking about.
So when out of curiosity, because I just said mine is probably 2010, 2012 range is when I can first really remember guys sticking out to me. When's that for you?
When I could really start to remember, Vic, I vaguely remember. But I would say starting in 02, 03, that range is kind of when I have a real recollection. That's also probably when I started playing the college football video games as well.
That would make sense.
And you'd have the NCAA Heisman mode and all of that stuff that you'd be a part of. So when you go back to that, that's probably early 2000s for sure. That's when I have some recollection.
Well, that makes sense after hearing you really enjoy the guys from the early 2000s like Vince Young and all of them.
Dude, Vince Young was... That season will forever go down as I think the best college football season, because it was Texas versus USC, this collision course. College football was at just such a unique place. USC had all of these celebrities. Bradford, I'm sure you remember that year. You had Pete Carroll as the head coach. It was Reggie Bush. It was Matt Leinart. There was all of the controversy surrounding Reggie Bush as well. Matt Leinart was a former Heisman winner.
Oh, yeah.
All of the celebrities were out there. It was LA that was on the map. And then at Texas, you had this Mac Brown team led by Colt McCoy and then Vince Young at the time. It's just that was such a great era of college football, in my opinion.
No, the pizzazz, the entertainment factor. You had Will Ferrell basically showing up to campus, 2 games left and right. And while we remember, obviously, the signature guys such as Bush, Leinart, Young, et cetera, those teams were loaded and going blow for blow, yes, in the national title game. How great was that? I don't think, you can't get any better as far as playing for it all.
Remember that crazy run of linebackers that they had at USC? It was year after year, they would be putting out the next guy. Brian Cushing was a part of that. Clay Matthews was part of that. They had Kalika Miyavi, something like that. That was a part of those teams as well. They just had this annual tradition of the next big linebacker that was going to be a first-round player.
It was a factory.
I'd be alive.
These names you guys are talking about are much better than the first name I can remember at USC, and that was Matt Barkley.
Oh,
that's the first name I remember.
Yeah,
I guess I remember.
See, I remember Matt Barkley, and he got all this hype, and I was like, "You young man are no Matt Leinart." Yeah. That's all I could think as I was watching him. I was like, "You are not exactly what Matt Leinart was." Got this from Marshy, who was the 05 Ohio State quarterback. He was a big time dude at the time. Texas OSU, that matchup that season was a great game. Wasn't that was that Troy Smith?
It feels like Smith. 05?
I think that would have been Troy Smith.
Yeah.
Do you remember him?
No, not at all.
Troy Smith was another really fun
I would have been
quarterback.
5 or 6, depending on when it was in 05.
Well before Cardale as well. Cardale Jones. Tanner, come on.
I remember Cardale Jones. I remember him.
He was the one that said, "We're not here to play school." I love me some Cardale Jones. Coming up next, Junk Drawer here on 101 ESPN.
The Blues play on 101 ESPN.
Big save on one end. Tie game on the other.
Thursday night, Blues and Kraken. Pre-game at 6. Puck drop at 7.
Score! He tucks it in with a great move.
This is your exclusive home for Blues hockey. 101 ESPN. the Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios. You're tuned into BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
With Steve Owen and Bradford, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. YouTube.com/101 ESPN STL is also where you can go to find us. T-Bone, what do you have for us today in the junk drawer?
I think I found the thing that's my breaking point on AI.
You needed more, huh?
Yeah, there's some that definitely have me questioning stuff, but this one is one that I'm like way out on for sure.
Okay.
Meta, of course, the owner of Facebook, has patented AI that can run a dead person's account, continuing to post in chat on their behalf. It can message and video call by replicating a user's online behavior using their past data. They got this patented early last week. I'm out on this.
Who wanted this?
I don't know, but I don't need this. I don't need to see like my grandfather who has passed away sending something to me on Facebook going, boy, wouldn't you like to read something about this? I'm out. No. I am out. This is my breaking point on the AI revolution.
I have no interest in that. I also saw there's a newspaper. I can't remember. I want to say it's in like Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken. I read this probably a couple of weeks ago now. They are using their reporters to go out and report on news still. And then they'll put the facts into like this page. And then an algorithm will take whatever it was that they reported and build it into a story. So the reporters no longer actually write the news. They just go out and gather the information. And then an AI algorithm will actually write it into a story, and then poof, they disseminate it out into the news. I don't need that either. I like all of this stuff is just, it's not only going a bridge too far, but it's absolutely terrifying. There's also just, I can get into my high horse on a lot of this different stuff, but the lack of community that is built because of some of this stuff, the lack of relationships that take place because of this stuff, it's scary, man.
Yeah, this is, again, there's definitely been, like, the reason I said this was my breaking point, because there have been moments where I look at this and go, why are we doing this? Why is this what we're going with AI for? This is the one, like, I'm kind of with you. Who asked for this? And then I don't really want to see that, right?
No.
Like, I don't want to see a bot posting as somebody that was close to me on Facebook commenting on the stuff that I am posting, or joining a video call, for example, right? Like, there's been some creative ideas that we've been, like, I'll use this as an example of something that my family is at least considering or operating with. My grandfather passed away last year, and we found an old tape recording of him doing an interview with one of my family's close, like, aunts or something like that. And he wrote a book about her, giving her biography.
Oh, wow.
And what my uncle wants to do is use AI to help kind of recreate his voice. So when he asks questions to it, he hears his father's voice again, right? That's kind of the stuff where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of interested in that, long as you're controlling it, right? I don't need to see his Facebook account posting stuff to me because Facebook thinks he needs to be activated. That's where I'm drawing the line at this stuff.
Yeah. The other thing is, like, who makes that call, right?
Exactly.
For your grandpa's account. If your grandpa still had a Facebook account, it was open, whatever, who then determines whether or not they want it to continue along? Is it your dad? Is it his brother? What if there's a difference of opinion on the matter? Is it something that is put into your will? Like, do you now have to put into your will whether or not you would like your Facebook to be continued? Or like for our Twitter accounts, right? We're highly active on social media because of the jobs that we do. If I die tomorrow, fingers crossed that doesn't happen, but if I were to pass away tomorrow, would AI then just have the ability to keep my account open in perpetuity, and then whenever they decide that it's time to start posting again from my account, they can do so? I don't know, man. It's all very confusing.
Don't you worry about this. AI can't replicate your tone.
Thanks, man.
I'm confident of that.
I appreciate that. I'm sure it'll do its best, though, and maybe one day it will be able to. Coming up in 15 minutes, can Pavel Buchnevich earn his way back into the Blues plans as a center? We'll get into that in just a little bit. But next, who's the Cardinal under the most pressure to perform in 2026? Is it somebody that's actually going to be on the baseball field? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Stupiracy, it's the podcast where stupidity and conspiracy collide. Episode 3, Weird Origins of Common Phrases. Common expressions like cat got your tongue and bite the bullet feel harmless in modern conversation until you peel back the layers of history and the origins of these familiar sayings. Stupiracy Season 2 is out now, including our latest episode where we spill the beans on some of these common phrases and the surprisingly dark, strange, and often misunderstood histories hiding behind them. Listen wherever you get your podcasts or watch on YouTube. Presented by CarStar, your auto body repair experts. Locally owned with a nationwide guarantee. Visit carstar.com.
Hey, it's BK from my friends over at Victory Men's Health. It is time for you to unlock your inner champion. The place to do so is with Victory Men's Health. I got in touch with them a little while ago, went in there to get my micronutrient levels checked because it was time for me to do it again. Last time I went in, it was about a year ago. I was part of a vegetarian diet at the time, and my needs have changed. I no longer am doing the vegetarian diet, so my micronutrient levels, I have to imagine, have changed a little bit. So I went in there. It was a super easy process. I booked my appointment online. I got the levels checked. I'm going back in next week to find out what the results were, and then they'll put together a personalized plan for me. That's what it looks like for me. It could be very different for you. Maybe it's weight loss goals, low testosterone symptoms, erectile dysfunction. You can find out all that they have to offer today. There's a lot of it at victorymenshealth.com. Check them out today. It's a super easy process to book that first appointment online at victorymenshealth.com. It's all available to you today at Victory Men's Health and victorymenshealth.com.
Missed the Blues game? Want to hear the highlights? Need player reaction? Want more analysis and opinion? It's all here on Curbside, your next day post-game podcast with the voice of the St. Louis Blues, Chris Kerber. Catch new episodes of Curbside every morning after every Blues game at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. Curbside is presented by Bellman Automotive. For the best price on a new Buick, GMC, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, or a used vehicle, shop Bellman in Troy. Online at Bellman.com. You can't do better than Bellman. WXOS HD1 East St. Louis 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. Kay and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center, presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
T-Bone, have you seen what Macklin Celebrini is doing in this year's Olympics?
He's been a stud, I know, in the Olympics. I think he had like 6 points going into the elimination round.
He is 19 years old. He's one of the faces of the league already. We've been talking about him all year. I remember Blues played against the Sharks a year ago, and we left that game and we're like, that guy is unreal. I don't know what his career is going to look like, but I'm buying all of your Macklin Celebrini stock. Well, today, he led Canada in ice time at 26 minutes, shots on goal with 8, slot shots with 5. He now has 10 points in the Olympics, which is one off of the previous Olympic record that Miro Heiskanen set with 11 points, I believe. Or maybe it wasn't Miro Heiskanen. I apologize. I'm looking at something else. So I don't know who holds that record, but Olympic record is 11 points. He has 10. He's 19 years old, T-Bone. 19. He's far from the prime of his career, and he's already doing this. It's unbelievable what Macklin Celebrini already is as a player. And the most impressive part of his game is like the all-around nature of it.
Yeah.
He wins board battles. He's decent defensively. I mean, it's insane.
And for 20 years old or 19 years old, he doesn't look completely overpowered at the NHL level. Like Bedard, I remember seeing him in his first year, and it was, you can see the talent in Bedard. You can also see you can just bully that guy. When he gets into the boards, you're going to just bully that little guy. Celebrini's not that. He is unbelievable.
Yeah, he's already one of the best in the league. All right, that is the update on the Olympics. We have the Team USA game coming up here in just about an hour. The Fast Lane will have all of the updates on that. Earlier today, I was reading a piece from our guy, Jason Stark, over in The Athletic, and he put together a piece on which individuals across Major League Baseball are feeling the most heat heading into the 2026 campaign. And there were a number of answers across the league, including Bryce Harper and the Phillies. That makes a lot of sense. They are definitely feeling the heat going into this year. The Mets, just overall, everybody involved associated with that thing is feeling the heat. Padres, same thing. Feels like the National League right now is kind of in the place that the AFC has been in, where the Dodgers have prevented everybody from getting their World Series, just as Patrick Mahomes has with like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. So there's pressure on those guys to win. The same thing is true for the Mets, the Phillies, Padres, all of the teams that have really been pushing over the last few years. Another team that's involved in this is Aaron Judge and the Yankees. So there's a lot of answers to this. When you look at other individuals, though, that were mentioned specifically to Jason Stark of The Athletic, Ollie Marmol was the only Cardinals player, the only Cardinals person that was mentioned. And it was only mentioned to him by one person, but he was the one name that was specifically referenced. If I asked you the question, T-Bone, which Cardinal, player, coach, manager, front office member, whatever, which Cardinal in 2026, who would you go with?
I think it is probably Ollie Marmol. I think that is the right answer, because of the other names that I've been kind of thinking of as the show's been going on today, I don't think any of them are as meaningful as like who the manager is of the St. Louis Cardinals. Like Matthew Liberatore, I think it's probably a make or break year for him because he's getting a little bit more expensive. He's now under the arbitration system. But even him, like if he does or doesn't play well, he's not a guy that I think of as like impacting the organization significantly moving forward. The same could be said for Plante, right? Plante's a guy that's getting more expensive. He's making $4 million. But again, another guy to where he doesn't really insignificant. And you brought this up to me yesterday. If they don't perform, that are here to replace them. So you kind of could just run it back again if you wanted to, honestly, if you're Chaim Bloom. So I think the answer is Marmol, because the manager spot, though you can go back and forth on how much do they really matter today, that is a significant position in the organization that has to communicate with the front office and is making the – I think he is the one that's under the most pressure. Now I say that, and the idea of him going in as a lame – I don't know what the hell stick around in the long term. Because he's not going to be judged on wins and losses. He's going to be judged on, I guess, the vibes in the clubhouse of if he's able to keep these guys working hard. And that's a tough ask in a year that's going to be potentially a year from hell.
I've got a different player that I would pinpoint for this, because I agree with you. Like Walker, I do think there's pressure on him. Don't get me wrong, but while there's urgency, who are you replacing next year? You probably just run it back again.
Yeah.
He's probably back here. Gorman, again, who are you replacing him with? There's urgency, no doubt about it. But if he finishes 5% above league average, how do you feel about him at the end of the season? I just don't know. I don't think there's real pressure on like Alec Burleson or Ivan Herrera or JJ Wetherholt or Mason Wynn. So I wouldn't really pinpoint any of those guys, the bullpen, whatever, dime a dozen. And most of the starters don't really see much pressure on any of these guys either, except for one. The guy that I would pinpoint with the most pressure on him this season to perform would be Matthew Liberatore. And the reason being, I think this is his last chance to really capture that spot in the rotation. Because there are players coming for the rotation. You do have Liam Doyle coming through your minor league system. Bryson Motts is coming through your minor league system. Quinn Matthews, you would assume, is rising through the ranks in your minor league system. There could be others, too, that add themselves to that group of the next wave. Durangelo Sanja, easy for me to say, is probably sooner rather than later, like next year, maybe midway through the season, going to be ready for the big leagues as well. There's just a lot of pitchers that are going to need opportunities. Dobbins, Fitz, McGreevy, you keep going through this, and then anybody that they add externally, and he gets pushed to the outside pretty quickly if he doesn't perform up to expectations. So I would say for me, he's the one. He needs to prove he can reach that he did early last season and then maintain it for a full year. Otherwise, he's a reliever. And that may just be the outcome, is he ultimately finds himself in that Andrew Miller role. That's not the worst thing. You can carve out a really nice major league career at the age of 26, 27 years old by just being that for the next 5 to 10 years. That's fine, but there's more value if he is able to become a legitimate starter in Major League Baseball. So for me, Matthew Liberatore would be the one that I would pinpoint of. It's pressure for him to perform both for his career and also what it means for in their next build of a potential
pressure. If they are able to build this out properly, I think their hope is that they end up just going to a guy that is Liberatore ends up just being a guy that they play through the system.
Alongside T-Bone, I'm BK. It sounds like we are having our weekly 115 issues. So coming up next, can Pavel Buchnevich earn his way back into the team's plans as a center? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. Broadcasting live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. Some news to pass along. This comes from Derek Gould of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Just posted this moments ago on the STL Today website. Colton Wong is going to join the group of former Cardinals that are spending some time around the big league club. Yadier Molina did so this week. Ozzie Smith, of course, has done his annual tradition of spending a little bit of time around the club. Adam Wainwright expected to join the club at the end of March to help with a little instruction. And David Freese also expected to come work with the team for the second consecutive year. This would be the first time, though, that Colton Wong has done so. I love that. That's great. Colton Wong was a guy that I always enjoyed our interactions with Colton Wong. He's also the kind of guy that I think could pour a lot into young players because he's kind of seen it all as a member of the Cardinals. He saw the team when it was good. He saw the team as it kind of started to get into where it's at today. And as a young player, he went through some of the frustrations of growing on a team that was trying to win. So I think he could give his perspective to some of these guys that are now doing something a little different where they have a real opportunity to just be a part of a runway season.
And I like that he's a guy that I'm assuming he'll be working with JJ Wetherholt at second base.
Great point, yeah.
He's a guy that won Gold Gloves in his career, was a very good defender, and, by the way, understood what it was like to be a guy that was very hyped by the fan base as a top prospect. I mean, he went 3 years in a row as a top 100 prospect in Baseball America's rankings. Now, he was never as high as JJ Wetherholt. But there's serious pressure that comes along with that. And I remember growing up of him being the next guy for the St. Louis Cardinals and dealing with that pressure. So, yeah, I'm glad to see that they are bringing him in to work with the guys down there at training camp. I'll be honest, didn't even think that Wong would be a name that would be brought up. But I love the addition that Ali Marmol and the Cardinals are deciding to bring in here to camp.
Other thing with him, like, I would even argue he had more pressure on him than what J.J. Wetherholt does this year. Now,
because they were winning?
Yeah. Now, the situations are quite different, and the pedigree is quite different. Like, JJ's expected to be a better player in his career than Colton Wong was in his. I think that's fair to say. But Colton Wong came up in 2014 when the team was, like, coming off of a World Series appearance and was expected to continue to get back to that.
Didn't he get picked off in the World Series, too?
Yeah. And in 2014, he was third in the NL Rookie of the Year voting. So he came in, was part of a team that was winning, and then he contributed toward that winning as a plus player up the middle for them. So I like the fact that he's going to be around this club. He did a lot of stuff that just, it helped you win baseball games. He got on base at a really high clip. He didn't strike out. He played excellent defense up the middle. He was able to weaponize at times his speed as well. He's the perfect player, honestly, to be around a guy like JJ Wetherholt. JJ Wetherholt's basically just a more talented version, hopefully, of Colton Wong.
Yeah, and the two pressures that he faced, which is a good point by you, that he was under more, is one, they were a winning club, which the Cardinals probably won't be this year. But two, you got to remember, too, he was the guy that Matheny would pull in and out of the lineup. Wong goes in an 0 for 10 stretch. Yep. All right, come sit on the pine next to Mike Matheny. We're going with, I think it was Mark Ellis, if I remember correctly, as his backup second baseman. Weather won't have to deal with those, but there's no problem in Colton Wong being able to pass down the wisdom that he's been able to learn through what was a really good 11-year career in the big leagues.
That's the update from Cardinals camp. Derek Gould expected to join us throughout the Cardinals season here on BK and Ferrario. Excited for him to be a part of the show this year. That is his update. You can read all about it at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. All right, on the Blues side of things, we talked yesterday with Jeremy Rutherford, and he noted something that I don't think I had seen reported elsewhere. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, T-Bone. Maybe it has been. I just personally have not seen it. Could have missed it last week. That's possible. He mentioned how Pavel Buchnevich is expected to stay up the middle. He's expected to play the center position even after guys get back from the Olympics. So that means you could soon have Robert Thomas, Dalibor Dvorsky, and Pavel Buchnevich as your three centers up the middle for your top nine. And that would force Pius Suter over to the wing, and you'd think Braden Shen over to the wing as well. Buch had been some kind of a resurrection for his season since getting back to the center position, which is strange because I didn't like him at center previously, and it seemed as though he didn't like playing the center position, but whatever. Is there a way for him to earn his way back into the team's plans as a center based upon his performance the rest of the way?
Yeah, I think it's possible, and I think it's one of the storylines I'm going to be following in the second half. You know, everybody wants to circle all the young guys, and that is fair, right? They are in the phase of kind of learning and developing with Dvorsky and Stenberg, and honestly, Logan Mailloux continuing to develop on the defensive side of the puck. But some of the veterans have some storylines to watch as well, and I think Buch at center is the one that's fascinating to me because you're right. It feels like a bit of a resurrection for what has happened over the last handful of games going into the Olympic break when he had been at the center position.
8 games, by the way, 9 points, +1 overall, 4 goals, 5 assists as the center.
Okay, I'm glad you're to pull it up because that's what I was working on over here. That's the player that you wanted to see from the St. Louis Blues because he wasn't doing that on the wing at all. I mean, we were talking about early in the season scratching him of how poor he was playing out on the wing. And it also creates all kinds of different avenues for you to both explore at the deadline and also potentially explore going into next season if this is what they decide to do. Because some of the argument that Alex has brought up, and it was a good point in the past of when I would say, well, do you trade Suter and Chen? And he'd say, well, you don't have any bodies to play center then, right? And even though, yeah, you are wanting to capitalize on assets, you still got to have guys that are up here playing. Well, this makes both Suter and Chen expendable if you're able to play Buchnevich at center because you can go up the middle for the remainder of this year as Thomas, Dvorsky, and Buchnevich. And if they're here, Chen or Suter, you can push them on a wing, but you can probably get some value for those guys at the deadline. And now rather than having to go out to the free agent market if Buch couldn't play center, if you traded those two guys going into next season, instead of giving someone basically a Pius Suter level deal or a Nick Bukestad level deal, you've got Buchnevich already locked in at center, and you've got pretty good wing depth on this team, and especially with a guy like Carbonneau that's coming up through the system here soon. I don't know how it would look, and I don't know if as a contending team Buchnevich is a center for somebody, even on the third line. But it's worth at least exploring and seeing what it looks like here in the second half in a lost season, and then trying to build out from there.
It really opens things up with your lineup, quite a bit. I mean, group just kind of going through this really quickly that I would like to see. I'd like to see them try Neighbors with Thomas and Snuggie as your top line. Just see what it looks like. I think they all make sense together. Neighbors as just that net front presence, Thomas as the distributor, Snuggie as the true shot first player. I think that makes sense as a top line. A second line potentially of Shin, Dvorsky, Holloway. See if you can recapture some of what that Shin, Holloway, Kyrou line was, but with Dvorsky in the middle this time around. And then the third line could be like Suter, Buch, and Kyrou. You've got 2+ defenders there potentially with Buch if he's playing responsibly again at the center, and Suter, who's always been good defensively. Add them with Kyrou. I think they can all see the game in similar ways as well. And Suter plays that simple game to go along with Buch, who's a true distributor, and Kyrou, who can be a little bit more of a playmaker as well. I think that makes sense for the way that they're potentially going to attack this thing. Now, that would change in the event that any trades are made. But for right now, up until the trade deadline, you could get a 5-game sample size of seeing what that looks like.
And Stenberg's responsible enough. You didn't mention
Stenberg,
his name.
I didn't even mention.
He's someone that probably slots in on either the Shen or Suter spot. And he's responsible to honestly, the second half of the year, you probably want him playing in your top 6 just to see what he looks like. That third one would be tough. If they didn't move Suter, then it all works out. And the reason I didn't say not move Shen is I still think he's going to carry value around the league to where they probably make a deal happen this time around. But that's what I would like to see. I'm kind of with you, and I like the idea of what you could potentially see from them in the second half with Buch at center. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean this is something that we're locking in for next season. But this is now the time of the year where you have to kind of experiment with some things post-deadline if you're the Blues after you sell off. So you can start to try and make some plans. And JR, when he was with us yesterday, did say, hey, Army and Steen saw him as a bit of a center too. And it just makes everything a little bit easier. So now let's say you do move Suter, whether it's at the deadline or in the offseason. You know who I'm putting in his spot going into next year? Carbonneau, right? So now those wingers, instead of Suter and Chen, you've got Stenberg on one and Carbonneau on the other. That'll be there with Buch, Thomas, and Dvorsky up the middle.
Or if you don't want to trade one of Suter or Shen and you're trading Kyrou instead because the return's just going to be more significant. Now you're replacing potentially Kyrou with probably Carbonneau, and then probably Suter or Shin, whichever one, with Stenberg, and then that's the way that you look at the lineup. So you basically have two spots in your lineup to potentially work with at this year's NHL trade deadline. I'll be curious to see which of those they ultimately decide to go with. I do think it just opens up more possibilities if Buch is able to land at the center position. I know you don't want to pay $8 million for your third-line center. That's not ideal, but they've got to make the best of what was previously a really bad situation. And if this is the way that they can do it, God bless. I guess this is the direction they can potentially go with.
It's different, but you go back to that Cup run team. Steen was an overpaid fourth-line center, but they had to salvage the contract, and they needed to get things going, and Steen took on that role, and, of course, created one of those lines that will go down in Blues history.
Yeah, and it ultimately led to them winning a cup. So I don't know if we're going to get the exact same result here with Pavel Buchnevich, but if he could be some version of that, it would certainly be helpful. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to get into the BK and Ferrario Rewind. If you guys have missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It is all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
Coming up next, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for One's Gotta Go. You give us 4 different options. We'll tell you which one's got to go here on BK and Ferrario.
101 ESPN's Blues Fan of the Week.
Congratulations to Jared McCormick from Ellis Grove, Illinois. He is our newest 101 ESPN Blues Fan of the Week.
Submit your pick now at 101ESPN.com to be the next Fan of the Week and take home a pair of tickets to an upcoming Blues game.
Our Blues Fan of the Week is presented by CarStar, your auto body repair experts. Locally owned with nationwide warranty. See us at carstar.com.
The Redbird Report, your front row seat to all things Cardinals. From the dugout to the diamond, BK and T-Bone go deep with the latest news, notes, and analysis. Watch the Redbird Report on YouTube or listen online at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Olympic semifinal matchup versus Slovakia on tap. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Team USA will face Dalibor Dvorsky's home country in the semis at 2:10 p.m. Earlier, Canada edged Finland 3-2. Nathan McKinnon's one-timer coming with 35 seconds remaining. Jordan Binnington made 15 saves. Sunday's gold medal tilt set for a 7:10 a.m. Central puck drop. College hoops, red-hot VCU visiting SLU tonight. Phil Martelli Jr.'s team hasn't lost since February the 10th. January the 10th, make that. Tomorrow, Mizzou hits Fayetteville while Illinois tackles UCLA. The Sports Center update was powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN. This is BK and Ferrario. Time now for One's Gotta Go. We offer up the talking points, and you get to pick which one's gotta go on 101 ESPN.
Count that big pen.
You see Miles Michaelis through his first BP at Nationals camp?
How do he look? Are they working on getting Adam swing and miss to his game like the Cardinals talked about there for
I
a
hope
year or
that's
two?
not what he was doing here. First at bat in a Nationals uniform ended in a Dylan Cruz home run.
Well, at least he's still serving up meatballs like he did last year.
Absolutely incredible. So, yeah, that's the update from Miles Michaelis. By the way, we do have a new edition of the Redbird Report. It's over on the YouTube page, 101 ESPN STL is where you can go to find it, or just if you Google or go to YouTube and search 101 ESPN, you'll find it right away. Super easy to do. We talked a little bit about JJ Wetherholt, whether or not it would make sense to offer him an extension right now before he even plays a Major League Baseball game. T-Bone advocated for doing so, which is insane. I can't believe I'm really saying this, but it's true. So you can check that out over on the YouTube page. You can also get some of our thoughts on Nolan Gorman, whether or not there is still hope for him. All of that available for you at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. But right now it is time for One's Gotta Go. You give us 4 different options. We'll tell you which one's gotta go here on BK and Ferrario. One's Gotta Go Animal Edition. Zebras, horses, giraffes, donkeys.
So you can't get rid of the horse. You can go horseback riding. I've heard that's fun. I'll go.
You've never been horseback riding?
No, never been.
Really?
Have you?
Yeah. My grandpa actually had a horse back in the day.
I want to try it.
Go out to Denver and we'd go out with his horse.
We've just never done it before. I'm open to trying it. I guess I'm going to get rid of zebra. I don't know what's so cool about a zebra. Like giraffes, they're kind of weird looking, long necks. I don't even remember what the fourth animal was. I'll go zebra. Zebra's the one that's got to go.
Donkeys.
Oh, donkeys. It means certain things too. So yeah. And you can't, how can you way down the Shrek? Donkey! Like, come on, you got to stick with zebras out of here.
Bradford, I saw you were at the mic, man. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, guys, I've been likened to a giraffe entirely too many times in this existence.
Is that why they're going for you?
They've got to go.
That's amazing. I'll go with the zebra as well, just because they have less use. Horses and donkeys are both important. Donkeys you can use to do things. And giraffes I love. I am a big fan of going to Kilimanjaro safaris down to Disney World and seeing the giraffes. I'm a big giraffe guy.
You can feed a giraffe.
That's
You
right.
can feed a zebra. I'll also add this. There's a band called Zebra that I saw in concert with my dad. There's a decent chance he's listening right now. One of the worst concert experiences I've been to. So get the zebra the hell out of here.
One's got to go movie series edition. Harry Potter, Star Wars, or The Lord of the Rings. Which one's got to go?
So I'm a Star Wars fan, so that stays. I've never seen or read anything on Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. I think I would enjoy Lord of the Rings more, though. So I'm going to say Harry Potter's got to go here.
I have never been able to get into The Lord of the Rings. I should probably give it another chance now that I'm a little bit older. A lot of those movies came out when I was younger, and I just never revisited them. I like the Harry Potter movies, and I enjoy the Star Wars universe. There's a few of the movies that I really like. So I'll say Lord of the Rings is the one that I would have to get rid of. I may put a pin in this one. If I were to revisit it and watch The Lord of the Rings, I would probably like it, and then I would likely say Star Wars is the one that's got to go. But for right now, Lord of the Rings for me.
BK, the window was open there for you for a little while. The Lord of the Rings movie is actually recently re-released in theaters. Trust me, that was very good in advance of Valentine's Day.
You missed your moment, BK.
Which one would you say, Bradford?
Harry Potter, but this one is very tough. I'm an old school Star Wars guy. I will admit, Tanner, I'm not as up to speed with even The Mandalorian, with the Obi-Wan series, and of course the last 2 installments. But if you're kicking it old school, hard to beat. I still haven't seen that either. I know 2 seasons of greatness, I've been told.
That's one of the best shows that I've seen in the last couple of years.
Yeah, if you haven't seen like Obi-Wan and Mandalorian, don't get me wrong, they're good. I don't think they're great. Andor's truly a great TV show, even for a non-Star Wars. If you weren't a non-Star Wars fan, you would enjoy it.
That's what I've heard.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. One's got to go gaming system edition. N64, the original PlayStation, Sega Genesis, or Xbox 360. T-Bone, how many of these have you actually used?
Let's see. The first PlayStation I remember was a PlayStation 2, so I don't remember the original.
You probably played an Xbox 360.
I did play an Xbox 360. Okay. What were the other two?
Sega Genesis and a Nintendo 64.
I've heard Nintendo 64. I think my buddy had one of those when we were growing up when I was very little, so that one I think I've done. I've never heard of that other one.
Bradford, these are our generation.
Heck yeah.
I would say the one I was an Xbox guy, so Xbox 360 was right up my alley. I loved the N64. I had an original PlayStation. I would go Sega Genesis is the one that's got to go for me.
Really, I liked the Sega, quite honestly. Talking about Sonic on that platform, I didn't play as much, believe it or not, of the N64. So,
oh really?
Yeah, I didn't. No.
Even to this day, there are certain games that were exclusive to the N64. You bring those out.
Like I'm in heaven now.
That's right. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. One's got to go. Fries edition. Seasoned curly fries, wedges, shoestring fries, or crinkle cut fries. For me, this is easy. I'll go ahead and go first. Shoestring fries have got to go. Easily the worst.
See, the one that's easy for me that's got to go, I got to get rid of the wedges. I don't like big, thick fries. I'm out on that. I just can't do it. I went to a place recently that had them, and I'm like, man, if I wanted a potato, I'd order a potato. I wanted a fry that's got some crunch to it, okay? So, yeah, for me, that's the one that's got to go, the wedges. I like all the other ones. I know shoestring, I could do with or without, but when you put the wedges in there, they're easily the one that's got to go.
As somebody who's had entirely too much cafeteria food and basically has the palate of a 5-year-old, I'm actually saying that I don't want the seasoning on the curly fries. The curly fries, give me seasoning on something else, but you know what? I'll go to bat for the wedges. I'll go to bat for the shoestring fries. Sure, why not?
I'm out.
It does nothing for me. I know a lot of people are big fans of Steak and Shake fries. They've got the shoestring
ones.
I'm out. Does nothing for me, man.
I'd rather have the other ones outside of the wedges, of course.
We went to Shake Shack last night.
Had
their crinkle cut fries.
Oh yeah,
those are pretty tasty. Those are pretty good, man.
Yeah.
I've been sleeping on Shake Shack.
Yeah,
I was a late convert. It's a little expensive, but
I'll say this: enjoy it away from a ballpark. Because if you ever see it, I think it's at Busch. If I'm not mistaken.
It at Enterprise.
Maybe that was what I was thinking of. Every time I've been by it at any ballpark or arena, it's like a line that's longer than getting into the building.
Yeah,
which is insane.
But if you go during play, it's not too bad. It's just don't go during any intermission. It's impossible to get it. But if you go during play at any point in time, it's not too bad. But I was a late arrival, but I think I've converted. They're really damn good burgers.
Welcome to the dark side.
Yeah, I've officially converted to that side of things. All right, coming up next, we'll hit the BK and Ferrario Rewind, give you our final thoughts leading into the weekend here on 101 ESPN.
Tomorrow morning, it's a college basketball doubleheader. Game 1, St. John's and Creighton. Game 2, Houston and Arizona. Coverage starts at 10:30. Your home for the NCAA is 101 ESPN. from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios. You're tuned into BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Lou, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page. By the way, while you're over there, you can check out all that TMA did this week at Cardinals spring training down in Jupiter. They were live all week, brought to you by Healthcare Evolution. If you didn't catch any of their interviews live, they had JJ Wetherholt today. They had Ollie Marmol earlier this week. They had Chaim Bloom. They talked to a bunch of guys down there. They had Victor Scott earlier today as well. It was all available, and a huge thanks to Healthcare Evolution for making that possible. Coming up here in just a little bit, we'll give you your final shot at BK and Ferrario to score a pair of tickets to see Zach Bryan.
Well done.
We will do that coming up here in just a little bit, so stay tuned for that opportunity. All right, we will finish out today's show by talking about one of the big news stories that took place from Cardinals camp earlier today. Ollie Marmol saying, hey, JJ Wetherholt, we think, has a real chance to be a leadoff hitter for us here in St. Louis. T-Bone, how would that change the way that you would construct the order, if at all?
I think what it does is it kind of slots Mason Wynn into the 2 spot. And then you kind of go left, right for a little bit before you eventually run into, at some point, you're going to have to create a little bit of a lane. But I think it becomes Wetherholt in the top spot. You're probably looking at Wynn in the 2, Burley 3, Herrera 4, and then I guess Gorman 5, and then you can go on from there. But I like the idea that they're at least considering him in the leadoff spot, especially in a year where everybody's kind of hitting out of position. You know, we talked about this earlier. You don't have a true 3-4 hitter in this lineup. I think on a contending team, Burley's probably hitting 5 or 6. Herrera's probably hitting 2, maybe, as a guy that can hit for a little pop, but gets on base more so and helps set things up for your guys that are in that 3-4 spot. So I don't mind if they just kind of throw them into the fire right away. Typically, Ollie likes to kind of let guys get their feet wet, see how they handle some situations. And if this was a couple years ago when they were contending, if Wetherholt would have made the team, I think he'd be hitting 7 or 8 in this lineup. They don't really have any reason not to hit him lead off this year. So I like the fact that they're at least considering it and open-minded to it. I'll be curious to see. I mean, it doesn't matter in the long run, but I'll be curious to see who hits leadoff tomorrow in their first spring training game.
I think long-term they have 3 guys that profile as potential leadoff hitters. It's JJ Wetherholt, Mason Wynn, and Victor Scott. I would say those are the 3 guys that at least have the potential to do it. Right now, Scott has not been offensively productive enough to be that guy. I would say the same thing's probably true for Mason Wynn, especially against right-handed pitchers. I don't think he's been a guy that's been productive enough to get the majority of the opportunities up there. JJ Wetherholt definitely has the upside to do this. He's not a huge power player. He's more of an average and on-base guy that profiles well toward the top of the order. Whether that's 1 or 2, I think that's where you probably want him long-term, and I agree with you. I think Ivan Herrera long-term best profiles as a 2-hole hitter, so let's see what it looks like. I know that Mason Wynn is a guy that, like, I put earlier today I would have him batting second. If they just said, hey, we think long-term our 1-2 is Wetherholt and Herrera, just go to it. Like, get your best dudes the most at-bats possible. What does that mean for you in the middle of the order where you're going like Wetherholt, Herrera, Burley, and now you've got to figure out who your cleanup hitter is? Is it Joel Pozo? Maybe. And it is what it is. You know, you don't have to apologize for the fact that this is not a very good team and you're putting Joel Pozo out there as your designated hitter batting 4th. It is what it is. You know, like, what are you going to do? Put Jordan Walker there and put that much more added pressure onto him into where he's at in the lineup? Probably not. So I'm really curious. I agree with you. I'm interested to see what they decide to do. What if they decided to go like Wetherholt, Herrera, Burley, Wynn? And just said, listen, I know Mason Wynn is not your traditional cleanup hitter, but, you know, he's our 4th best hitter, and we're just getting our best dudes at the top of the order.
All right. I was originally thinking when we were having this conversation that I wouldn't get upset unless they did something crazy like hit Herrera like in the bottom half of the order. I can't convince myself on hitting one in the cleanup spot. There's no scenario. Like, honestly, I agree with what you said. You probably don't want to put this much pressure on Walker. Hell, probably don't want to put this much pressure on Gorman and hitting him in the cleanup spot. I'd rather see those guys there than Mason Wynn. I think for Wynn, you either hit him 1 or 2. I could hear the argument on 5 because, in theory, if he's going to be a hitter, he's going to be a contact hitter.
Sure.
And he would kind of profile, not to the same effect, but kind of as Burley, where his on-base is built based on hitting the ball, not walking. After that, though, like that 3-4 spot, you couldn't convince me at all, even in a rebuilding year that's already a lost cause, to put him in that spot.
I think the real reason you don't do it is because we have seen in the past Mason Wynn sometimes gets a little pull happy. He gets a little power happy, and he sells out for all that power. And if you suddenly put him into the cleanup spot,
you're
really playing
feel it.
into that, and you're like, all right, big boy, it's time for you to drive in a bunch of runs. And he's like, 6, sounds great. Here comes my pull power. And suddenly he's hitting 220 with a 26% strikeout rate. That's not what you want out of him.
Putting a cheeseburger in front of someone that's saying, I'm going to be healthier this year.
Exactly. I would not recommend doing that. Somebody on the text line said, what about Nootbaar in the cleanup spot? Yeah, that's where it throws off a lot of this stuff. Is when Lars Nootbaar does come back. I will be curious to see what they decide to do with him. My guess is if they go this direction, you probably do see Wetherholt 1, Wynn 2, Burley 3, Herrera 4. That makes the most sense. And when Nootbaar returns, I guess you go with him 5, and then like one of Pozo or Walker 6, and then go back to Gorman at 7, something like that.
I find it fascinating because for Nootbaar, like 5, if you were just saying, okay, we really still want to experiment with Wynn and Scott or Wetherholt at leadoff, which I would get if they did that. But if they already have determined, like we've talked about a couple times over the last 2 days, of is Nootbaar part of the core, if they've already determined that answer is no, the best way to showcase his value to me is hitting him leadoff.
Yeah.
But
if Wetherholt you believe is your future leadoff hitter, I care about that more than I do Lars Nootbaar.
Yeah, but I think if you think that and he proves it early on, I think like the whole hitting leadoff, like if you think he's your leadoff hitter, he has to learn that this year. You could go up until the deadline and not really find that out and hit him there.
But isn't it more valuable to get him those reps than it is to showcase as a leadoff hitter?
I don't think so, because I think if you're going to trade Nootbaar, you're looking at value in that move. Like Wetherholt, I just care that he can prove he's a big leaguer right now. I don't really care where he's hitting in that doing that. But for Nootbaar, like if you put him 5, I don't know you can showcase his value because teams.
Why not?
I think you have to almost kind of protect Nootbaar, right? And if he's hitting 5th, teams are going after him in the zone. And I think his best value is when he's getting on base, drawing walks. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that as much.
I mean,
I don't know if he's going to do much power.
Anyways.
I mean, if he's ahead of Herrera, that's more protection than ahead of Fermin or Pozo or Walker. I just think if he's back, I think he's the leadoff hitter. And because like the whole, well, don't you need to figure out if he can hit leadoff? I don't know if you got to figure that out this year.
Oh, I'm not saying you have to figure it out. I just think if your belief is that Wetherholt is going to be your future leadoff hitter, if that's the expectation, if the goal is for him to be there, I think in a year where not a whole lot else really matters about your team, get him used to it. Get him comfortable in that spot. Put him in situations that he will see when he's a leadoff hitter, because it is different. I mean, we've heard guys talk about this before where leading off changes some of what you do as a hitter. Like he will play slightly differently there than he would if he was your 3-hole hitter, for example. And I think that would probably be where he slides. He's probably a 3 or a 5 if you don't put him in the leadoff when Lars Nootbaar returns. So I don't know. I've seen them in the past also go with like the 1-2 with lefties. You know, we saw them do that with Nootbaar and Donovan. Maybe they just say, you know what, we're going to put JJ 1 and Nootbaar 2. And yes, it's 2 lefties back to back. So be it. We'll put those guys 1-2. We'll put Herrera 3, Burleson 4, and we're good to go. And we feel like we'll just be able to attack teams. Those are our best hitters. Make it work, you know, come at us. And then maybe against lefties, you switch it up a little bit and drop Nootbaar down further. But I could see something like that happening too.
Yeah, I guess because I don't mind doing that, because that's been one of the things where I've pushed back at times on their lineup construction. I just want your guys that are best suited in that spot in the order, right?
Sure.
Like when they would hit Nootbaar 5 at times in recent years, to me that never really made sense. That's why I still even now have a tough time trying to put him that low in the order, is because he's more of an on-base guy.
He's
right?
a tough fit for this lineup.
The value's not there for an on-base guy in the 5 spot, because you basically get on base to then turn it over to the guys that aren't really hitters at the bottom part of your order. So he'll be tough to figure out where they ultimately end up putting him. And I guess the other thing that I have a tough time with, and maybe this is my Michael Gersh coming out of me, is I understand the sentiment of if you think Wetherholt is your leadoff hitter long term, kind of start having him experiment or experiencing that. I just think that I can't settle him in anywhere yet as he is a leadoff hitter in the future. I think, as we've seen, even when the Cardinals were good, they would constantly be rotating pieces in and out and around as they were trying to figure out, okay, this guy is hitting and then he's not hitting it. Now we're going to slide someone else up into the 1. We're going to slide somebody else up into the 2. I think that's just kind of how you have to go about it. So I don't know if there is any longer the viewing of, okay, we profile him as the leadoff hitter for our build long term. I think it is we profile him as a 1, 2, or 5 hitter in our build long term.
Yeah, I think when they're at their best, though, they don't do that. I think at their best, they had guys that slotted in certain spots. You always knew, like, hey, Goldie's going to bat 2 or 3. You knew that Arenado was going to be your 4-hole hitter. And I think you look around the league, teams that are really good, they know who's batting leadoff. They've got a pretty good idea of who's batting in their top 4 of their order. Beyond that, it can fluctuate day to day. But most of the teams that are having success now have pretty set lineups at the top at a minimum. On the basketball side of things, really big game tonight. VCU versus SLU. It's at Chaifetz Arena. SLU is a 7.5-point home favorite in this one. I anticipate that they'll play really well. We just saw them get upset. I would anticipate a bounce back by them. It should be a hell of a lot of fun. It's a sold-out arena tonight. It's also a really big game for their seeding. And now, to me, all of this stuff the rest of the way is less about will they or won't they get into the NCAA tournament, and it's more about where will they fit once they get there. I saw in the most recent bracketology stuff, they're kind of a 6-7 type of a seed. Stop. And
I didn't do anything. I don't know why
many people have them potentially landing in the St. Louis region. I think that's what you hope that they end up as. If they lose some of these games down the stretch, though, you could continue to fall down. And instead of being on the 7 line, for example, you could make your way down to 8, 9, or maybe even the 10 seed.
Yeah, I think if, of course, they win tonight, it'll be fun to watch. But I think if they do lose, I think they're out of mulligans the rest of the way. I think you can lose tonight, and then as long as you only have one more loss and it's in the A-10 tournament, I think you can be an at-large bid. You lose tonight and lose one more along the way in the regular season, I think you can kiss the at-large bid goodbye, and it is almost you have to win the A-10 conference tournament then, because this A-10, you cannot suffer a bunch of losses. Even like VCU, look at them. They've got, 2 conference losses, I think, on the year? They're not in right now.
Yep.
Nobody's putting them in right now. So you run out of wiggle room if you suffer a loss tonight. I'm with you, though. I think they bounce back and take care of business.
Mizzou in action tomorrow on the road at Arkansas. Arkansas is the 10.5-point favorite in this one. That feels about right to me. I don't feel good about this. Mizzou had the big win earlier this week. I just think Arkansas is going to be too much. They had an unbelievable double overtime game. I think they end up getting the win here, and I think that margin feels about right to me with double digits. Illinois also in action. Big Fox on Saturday night taking on UCLA on the road. A little surprised by the line, T-Bone. Only 6.5 points in favor of Illinois. I like Illinois, and I like them minus the points here.
I do, too. I'm surprised it's that low. They're back at full strength. And when they're back at full strength, Underwood said today they're probably going to keep Jake Davis in the lineup, which was something I was curious about. That means Stojakovic is coming off of the bench with Humberkaus and the other Ivasic brother. They're just too deep. Now that they're back to their full health, they feel unstoppable till they run into someone like a Michigan. So I think they win, and I'm with you. I think they cover.
Team USA coming up in about 10 minutes. T-Bone, do you think they get it done and play in the gold medal game against Canada?
I think they do. I think it's going to be a lot like the Canada game, though, where they probably got to sweat it out. I don't think they're going to blow out Slovakia, but I do think they take care of business, and they're going to go up against Canada for the gold medal game on Sunday.
I've got Team USA winning 4-2 in this one, and then we will have one hell of a gold medal game between Team USA and Canada, the game we were all hoping to see at some point in the Olympics. He's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. Bradford Bruns did a fantastic job for us, keeping us keeping us on the air, back in the studio today. We've been broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center. Have a great weekend. Enjoy Cardinals baseball, which is back on this weekend as well. And right now, as a parting gift, I'm going to give you a shot to score a pair of tickets to see Zach Bryan coming up on Saturday, March the 7th at the Dome. Find all the ticket details at 101ESPN.com or on the mobile app 101 ESPN mobile app, which is, of course, free to download. If you are texter number 101 with the correct answer to the following question, you are getting those Zach Bryan tickets to see him in concert. Earlier today, T-Bone mentioned this is the last straw. He's done with AI. Why? What is AI doing now that he has decided that is the last thing that I can deal with? If you have the correct answer, texter number 101, you're going home with those tickets to see Zach Bryan coming up on March the 7th. For T-Bone in Bradford, I'm BK. The Fast Lane's next here on 101 ESPN.